There we go, lights, camera, actioner. On the west side of Manhattan, it's a curtain call. It's not about the snap of a film credit like we're in Hollywood. It's the theater here. So good evening, everybody. Curtains up. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 4's full board meeting for the month of February. My name is LeFrancois. I'm the chair of the board, and I'm delighted to be here with you all this evening. As you've heard us say for the past many, many months, we are here virtually by the order of New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who has suspended the in-person meeting aspect of the open meetings law and will be meeting virtually until further notice. All of our committees and full boards are being held virtually on Zoom accordingly. Our meeting is being live streamed on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is also being recorded. As is always the case, tonight we have a public hearing followed by a talk and a Q&A with the Manhattan District Attorney, and then our public session. Folks are already using the raised hand function. That should be how you call on yourself this evening. And if you're dialing in, you'll need to press *6 to be acknowledged. Tonight's agenda can be found on our website at MCB4.nyc. And I would note that while our agenda doesn't include too many items in the business portion, we have a lot of people signed up for the public session, which we're going to get to that a bit later, as well as time with our district attorney. The Manhattan District Attorney is with us this evening. So my chorus in advance throughout the evening for you will be about brevity. And if you have a question, to please get to it and to not have a sonnet of a statement in advance. So you may hear me sort of saying that throughout the evening so we can keep things moving. I'm going to start the meeting off tonight with our public hearing. In accordance with our charter mandate, we are required actually to have a monthly public hearing. Last month, we had a hearing about rats. This month, we've decided to have a brief public hearing and information sharing session about ULURP, the city's land use process. So I'm going to walk folks through a broad overview of a couple of slides. We have not had anybody sign up for the hearing, but if there's any general questions, we can entertain a couple of those. But this is just a broad overview of the ULURP process, because we're going to have a couple of ULURP actions that the board has to take up. And so we thought it prudent to make sure folks understand a bit about this process and what it is. So broadly speaking, land use overview for us here in the district. I'm really going to be very specific and tailored, and it's really going to be about what ULURP is. So broadly speaking, these are the actions that require ULURP to take place. Many folks on the board have been around for what is the city's formal land use process. We do zoning map changes, city map changes, disposition or acquisition of property, neighborhood rezonings. You'll see, our community district has been involved with pretty significant neighborhood rezonings: West Chelsea, Hudson Yards, 11th Avenue most recently. And then we're also a part of much smaller, more focused zonings as well. There's also citywide zoning applications that come before us. There was the hotel permits application. There was an access to food application last year. So these come from us from all different angles, and we approach them either in the micro sense, if it affects a specific street or block in the district on the whole in land use, or sort of zooming out from the whole of how it's taken into the city, the whole of New York City. You heard me say ULURP a couple of times. I probably should have put this introductory slide before my last one, but ULURP, Uniform Land Use Review Procedure. If you've been involved in the community board or in government for a while, we like our acronyms. So ULURP, it means something. And it requires a 5-step process to make something happen. The city Department of City Planning, which is a city agency, and it has a board that oversees and governs it, and a big staff. They are the ones that formulate and plan and meet with property owners, community boards, interested parties to plan what the ULURP or land use action is going to be. Once they've sort of settled on a plan, they then certify that plan. And then ULURP formally kicks off. And so that's when we get into this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step process here. Department of City Planning certifies an application, and the community board gets 60 days to hold hearings, get feedback from the community, and formulate a set of recommendations, a formal opinion, basically, on what's being proposed by the ULURP action. You know, this can range anything from building design to affordable housing, to street wall, to any number of things that are in the application. We have the ability to strike a chord on them. Our recommendations then go to the borough president. One of the official capacities of the office of the borough president is actually land use. And that's why they have a formal process within the ULURP timeframe. So as you can see, they're number 3. Then it goes to the City Planning Commission, where there's a hearing, where if we are a part of a ULURP process, we would be testifying. The City Planning Commission, all of the directors would be there, and they'd be taking comments and hearing from the public on the matter, at which the community board typically opines. And then the City Planning Commission takes a vote on that application. From there, it goes to the City Council. The City Council also holds hearings. It has a subcommittee on land use and zonings that through which it takes this stuff up. It hears out the public, it hears out the member, and then they vote on it. And then the mayor would sign the final application. So as I kind of just mentioned here, our community board process, our job is to hear out the public, hear out our members, as well as the local community who's going to be a part of or affected by the ULURP process. So our job is to get the word out, hold those hearings, and then based on all that feedback, our work with the Department of City Planning and our elected officials, we would issue a series of recommendations, good and bad, or positive and negative, I think is a more appropriate way to think about it. And then see what recommendations we can make to broadly improve or make sure it is in line with a lot of our community planning way of thinking. Other stakeholders, I sort of just overwent this, a better understanding of the City Planning Commission. It's a 13-member body. The mayor holds the majority of appointments. The mayor also appoints the chair of the Planning Commission, as well as the executive director. The new chair of the City Planning Commission is Daniel Gorodnik. He's a former council member from the east side of Manhattan. Our board never formally interacted with him, but he is a well-respected public servant. Before stepping into the role of City Planning Commission, he was, I believe, president or executive director of the Riverside Park Conservancy. Each borough president gets an appointment to the City Planning Commission. That's why there's 5 for our 5 boroughs. And the public advocate also has a seat on the Planning Commission. They meet once or twice a month, addressing issues citywide, taking up ULURP actions, and they can modify applications extensively as it comes before them. I mentioned the council. These are the specific committees through which the council takes up land use actions. Like I said, the land use subcommittees that address ULURP issues. These are any number of the committees a particular item might wend or work its way through. And then broadly speaking, there's the land use committee, which would then report out its recommendations to the full council, who would then take the vote. And again, the city council can also modify a ULURP application significantly, largely based on community and planning feedback. So that's my broad overview of the ULURP process. We wanted to keep it very informative and high level. We have a formal part in that process, as many of you know and are a part of. We're sort of step 1 once the application has been certified. So we wanted to share this with everybody because we have a couple of ULURPs coming up this year, and really felt it an appropriate thing to do as we have a lot of new members. And it's always good for everybody to get a refresher on this. So I guess I'll first ask if there's any questions from the board on ULURP or this topic generally. Mr. Devlin.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thanks. That was a great presentation. And I just want to make a comment to the general public about the importance of this process. and understanding the timing. We recently went through a ULIP process in West Chelsea that we had great success, that we followed the timeline very closely, we monitored, we listened to community input, and the West Chelsea rezoning that is affected Terminal Warehouse and Starrett Lehigh has changed dramatically as a result of the impact from the community. So when we're looking at land use developments going forward, to those in the public, this is, you often hear the expression, you can't fight City Hall. If you understand this process and you engage in this process in a timely fashion, you can fight City Hall because we've done it. So I just wanted to add that. Pay attention to the timing. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thanks for that, Paul. Any other, and again, you know, I didn't mention our specific committees that we have for this. We have our 2 land use committees, one for Chelsea, one for Clinton Hell's Kitchen, and they're really the experts on the process, on how to engage and make sure that as many of our points of recommendation that we feel strongly about get incorporated into a final application. Jesse.
Just 2 things off of Paul and what you just presented, that just to make clear that at every stage of that process that you just went through, there's the whole point of that is to have more public input. So there are hearings here at community board, and there's definitely hearings at other stages, and that's another reason to focus and track that, is that you continue to have that input from each stage of that. I did want to just mention that Bill Barack had listed himself as on the first to speak on this at the hearing, but I think maybe that's actually a mistake. But I don't want to assume that. So I'm just going to check in with Bill, who's in the attendee section, and just make sure that that's
okay. We'll hold out for him. If in the meantime, if any of the board members have a question or a comment on this, we'll check with Bill because he did sign up, and we want to make sure if anybody wants to specifically speak on this hearing topic, we allow them to do so.
Bill, you should be able to unmute yourself if you want to speak on this, unless you're looking to speak.
I don't know if it's working. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bill.
Oh, wow. How did that work? So we're talking about West 15th Street situation?
No, so Bill, this is specifically about the city's land use review process, so ULIRP. So if you wanted to sign up for the general public session, we're going to get to that a bit later in the meeting.
Right, that's what it was
for.
for.
Back over to the attendees and ask you to hold those comments for now.
I'll hold it, right, if it's for the issue about 15th Street. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll bring you back
for now. You won't be the only one looking to speak on 15th Street. Ms. Rubin.
Hello, Jeffrey. Thank you very much for doing that, because it has been a little bit of a while since we've had a land use action. And one of the things that for those folks that are new to the board, what's real important is not only getting that feedback from the broad community, but amplifying that, refining it, and making sure that with one voice, we as a community can make sure that the next stages step in line. We have traditionally had great success of setting the stage for the borough president to understand the concerns and the needs of the community through our writing and our voice in our ULIRP process, which then informs city planning. And again, it's by taking that unified voice and really demonstrating what's important to the community that gives confidence to the borough president to know that this is the right move for our community. And I just wanted to let you all know that, because we all may have varying opinions about what we may want to see on one block or another, but really allowing the voice of the broad community to be brought into our process is important, and for us to be unified in our stage of the process is helpful along the way for our elected and that commission to go ahead and be comfortable with what they're certifying. I'll come get you.
Thank you for that, Dolores. Appreciate it. And I would note that CB4 often also holds like Land Use 101 educational forums for new members, because even if you're on a land use committee or not, it's actually very useful to understand the process and the technicalities. And you want to talk about acronyms? Oh my gosh, look at a land use application. So that will be another learning curve for everybody in the end. If there's no other questions on this topic, which I don't see any from the from the board, and I believe those hands raised on the other side are for public session. I'm going to go to the next item on our agenda, which I believe, yes, we do have with us. This evening, I'm very pleased to introduce and have join us Manhattan's new district attorney. Mr. Alvin Bragg is with us this evening. So folks know we're going to be hearing from the district attorney. He'll have the floor to introduce himself, begin having a conversation with us. I'm then going to take 3 to 4 questions from board members, and then we will take no more than 3 questions from the public. I would also note that Mr. Bragg's first deputy joined CB4's executive committee, not this most recent Monday, the Monday before, in a meeting where we had a conversation that went on for, I would say, almost an hour. So I'm going to pass it over to our new district attorney, but want folks to know largely that he just took the office, and this is a relationship we look forward to continuing to have and having it be an ongoing conversation. So, Mr. District Attorney, I pass it over to you, sir.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I will say we're having some tech challenges on my end, so we have a number of members from the GA team here, but we were not able to join on more than one link. So we're now there. You won't see them, but they're in the room with me. Meg Reese, who you met before, Estelle, who you know, and Shireen, who you know, and we may sub out seats. Shireen in particular has a lot of knowledge about the Midtown Community Court, so she may join me on screen, and we'll then put a mask on or something. But really happy to be with you. It's obviously been a challenging first month of the year, really for the whole city, but particularly Manhattan. I was at the St. Patrick's Cathedral earlier today for the funeral of now Detective Shimamura, and so wanted to start by just acknowledging that. It is. Let me now introduce myself, because those who may not know me. So I'm a lifelong Manhattanite, your neighbor slightly to the north in central Harlem for my entire life. I'm a career state and federal prosecutor, working in the New York State Attorney General's office, and also as a federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, having done kind of the full spectrum, everything from assault to armed robbery to public corruption to financial Wall Street fraud. And the great office of the Manhattan DA's office does that full spectrum. I'm so really happy to be here with our outstanding career prosecutors. Our priorities, and I'll just hit 3 or so of them, and then leave time for the questions. But our number 1 priority is guns. We saw just last night another shooting, not in your area, but on 125th Street. Guns travel, so I think it's an issue for the whole city, but particularly all of Manhattan, even though it's concentrated right now in the northern part of the borough. So last week I appointed first of its kind in our office, executive district attorney for gun violence prevention. His name is Peter Pope. He's a career prosecutor, started out in the Manhattan DA's office years ago, was a court-ordered monitor for one of the cases brought during the Bloomberg era against out-of-state gun shop that was sending illegal guns our way. And so he has deep, long-standing expertise, and he's going to focus in the first instance on connecting the dots between the gun possession cases we have in the office and trying to turn those cases where the evidence allows for it into gun trafficking cases. So taking a case that's about one gun and following the trail and turning it into a case about 20 or more guns. And so that's a particular emphasis. Just yesterday, we actually had a ghost gun case, which will complement our tracing work. Ghost guns, as you may know, are guns without serial numbers. They are an emerging problem in Manhattan, not as big a problem here as there are in other parts of the country, but we want to keep it that way. So we are ramping up enforcement in that area. So that's the first real priority in the office is our gun enforcement. The second is a combination of what I call commercial robbery and shoplifting. So last week we also formed a small business alliance, bringing together small businesses, umbrella organizations, the NYPD, to really look at this issue. We've got, I would say, I've divided into a couple of categories. We have commercial robberies, particularly of sort of mid and high end stores where people are coming in groups and grabbing property, worth very significant amounts. I approach this much like I've approached sort of the drug rings that I've worked on over the years, following the money and following the contraband. And so we're putting measures in place to really have complicated investigations that dismantle these systems. Then we obviously have sort of the shoplifting, which we've seen, and there I kind of am approaching that in sort of two separate categories. Met yesterday, or it's Monday, with the mayor and the 4 other city DAs, and this was an issue we talked about. And I would divide the sort of shoplifting into 2 categories: folks who need services, and we need to connect the services, mental health and substance use disorder. And then the second category are those repeat offenders who are being opportunistic, who we need to use the traditional forms of accountability. So we've convened the Small Business Alliance. We'll start meeting, and I think it's a great kind of overlay of NYPD, our small business leaders, and our small business kind of umbrella group. So looking forward to that conversation. And the third area I want to lift up is domestic violence. It's something that we don't always talk. I think we don't talk enough about. That also, these are all issues that really kind of ticked up during COVID. Guns, the small business issues, and also domestic violence. We've seen a rise in domestic violence during COVID. So really focusing on that in the office and bringing in great expertise. As you all know, we're our teams and who we bring in are what make up this work. And so the head of our trial division joined us January 1, and she's a career domestic violence prosecutor and was the acting district attorney in Nassau County, and also ran the Bronx Family Justice Center. So that's going to be a particular focus of ours. But why don't I leave it there? I'm really happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. District Attorney. We'll start. Mr. Corvino.
Thank you for being here, Attorney Bragg. I absolutely agree with the call for increased mental health services and reopening the Midtown Community Court. But I would also like to keep a focus on police accountability. We in this district wrote a letter about the situation with our resident, Derek Ingram, and we still haven't seen any accountability on that. I also just want to say that, I'm the co-chair of transportation planning. So we see conduct from the police departments that they are unwilling to comply with the rules that we're all supposed to comply with, from placard abuse to barricading precinct blocks to systemic bias, especially against cyclists involved in collisions. And then we hear stuff like the conflation of First Amendment protests against police violence with opportunistic looting and false claims about bail reform and defunding. And I hear radicalized voices in the police department like Pat Lynch, and an officer who recently said that we need lawmakers to be victims in order for them to understand what's going on. That guy's been demonizing you lately too.
Dale, I started my evening asking folks to make sure they get to their questions. I'm going to ask you to do that, okay?
I'm just there.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I just want to hold out some hope that we as a district and the city will not be captive to these dynamics.
I lost you a little bit at the end there, and so I didn't hear the question. But I'll just say broadly, in addition to my traditional, I'll call it traditional public safety prosecution, I'm also serves as a civil rights lawyer. I represent Eric Garner's family. Was appointed statewide to look into police accountability. So this is I think we can do both, right? And we have to do both. Prioritize public safety and also accountability, I would say, from our police to our electeds, sort of to our prosecutors, holding us all accountable. So it's a part of the work we do. A unit was started about midway through last year, I think April or May. Prior DA, I certainly support that police accountability unit. And one change I made, person who heads it is a former colleague of mine from the state. I have great confidence in him. And structurally, I now have him reporting directly to me to give those issues primacy.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Dale. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, DA Bragg, for joining us tonight. I agree with Dale 100%. I also want to ask a question about bail reform in terms of how will you ensure that all have equal access under the law?
Well, I mean, that is our core principle in our system. I don't know what Albany is going to do on bail reform. We've certainly looking at particularly the conditions at Rikers, where I visited late last year, and are kind of profoundly mindful of that. When we send someone pretrial, we're sending them to a place that is in the middle of a humanitarian crisis, and so I don't know what they'll do on the law changes, but we're operating under the law, we're applying it, and we're trying to apply it in as equitable as way as possible. So one thing the office is going to do, you may be familiar with, there was a study by the Vera Institute in 2015, commissioned by my predecessor, focusing on racial equities. And it showed that at every step along the way in Manhattan, from the arrest charge to the plea offer to the sentence, that there were racial disparities. And so that's a great historical report. We've been kind of looking at, I've done that kind of historical report before. I think that has value. We're looking now to use our data, to use that kind of data in real time for real-time management outcomes. And so that we can look at the end of the month and see, okay, this is a disparity here. What do we do to correct it so it doesn't happen next month? And so we're putting those systems in place now.
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, Maria.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Hi, Alvin, Bragg. It's Maria Ortiz here. We've met before. You came to a Block Association meeting, the one that Christine Gorman was leading, and Dolores Rubin was also there. I'm sure you might remember that meeting. Oh, I lost you on the screen. Oh, there you are. Okay. So I raised my hand because I just feel a sense of obligation to speak for community members who've been to meetings. I'm co-chair of Housing, Health, and Human Services. I've been on the board since 2014. I am a licensed social worker working in the community. I was also born and raised in the community. My whole life, Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen. And I just want to share with you that, and my co-chair, I should add, has been on the board also since approximately 1982. And it's unprecedented that we've seen so many people come to the community board and talk about public safety concerns. And I'm sharing that, and that's why I shared how long he's been on, because I've only been on since 2014. And I would say over 500 people probably coming and talking about safety concerns that they have. And it can range from anything to seeing people using on the street, selling, to being physically assaulted, and impacting all kinds of people in the community. And obviously, there's been high profile cases that have happened in the community. And I was glad to hear you talk about, and also Meg Reese mentioned it as well, talking about people who are suffering from addiction, people who are suffering with mental illness, struggling with addiction, and the repeat offenders. That's something we keep hearing a lot about, Alvin, those three things. And we also met with Honorable Tamiko Amaker, I believe is her name. And there was discussion about reimagining or rethinking what Midtown Community Court would be when it does reopen. And I think that there's wonderful opportunity to I don't know what the right word is. I'm thinking alleviate some of the situation that's occurring. And that was it. I had no question. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
So thank you. And thank you. I actually like the way you emphasize the service time. I mean, with the great thing, I've been going from community board to community board, and it's phenomenal to see the investment of time and energy the people have spent, as you point out, across the years. And I agree with you. I mean, I've been in this space professionally for 20 plus years, and in Manhattan now for almost 50. And we do see a sort of renewed urgency on a range of public safety issues. And we're focusing on them, every day. We get the, alerts from around the borough, on everything from, a homicide, down to a commercial robbery. And we're focused on it. We've got a phenomenal team here that's working, every day.
Thank you to you and your team.
Thanks, Maria. Folks, just Joe will have the last word from the board, and then I'm going to go to a member of the public. So Christine.
Yes, dear Bragg, thank you so much for coming. There is another safety issue in our neighborhood, which is traffic safety. And we have so many people we just had 1 week ago, another person being killed while they were just walking with the law. And your predecessor had put together a package of laws that he wanted to get passed in Albany in order to be better equipped to, really try to keep people which are recidivists and others off the streets. And I'm wondering, what is your plan about that?
Thanks so much for the question. And I have, again, I mentioned those alerts. I have, been very concerned to see the alerts about traffic safety. We have, looked at that report and support, my predecessors with a grand jury inquiry, which led to legislative proposals. And we support that. Again, I don't know what Albany will do, but in the meantime, we are going to be working, on those matters. I think Jill Huckster, who does this work for us, recently or relatively recently presented, if not to the whole body, to a subset. So the importance of that work and the kind of work of my predecessor in the space lays great groundwork for us. So we're not starting flat-footed, so to speak. Don't know what the legislative path will be in Albany. We'll continue to lift it up. But in the meantime, we'll use the tools at our disposal, and obviously need to coordinate with the NYPD and make sure the things that are criminal activity are treated, in criminal court.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Katie.
Great, thank you. It was great to hear about your priorities, including gun violence and police accountability and domestic violence. I just had 2 quick questions. One, Miriam alluded to this earlier about this perception that our community isn't safe. There's a lot of public safety issues, but at the same time, we know that sometimes that PR would be really helpful to know sort of what is happening, what kinds of cases are you prosecuting, how many are getting closed. And then as you know, as we've all seen in the press, there was a statement made by your office that then seemed to pretty quickly be misconstrued, and there was a lot of concern about. And I'm just wondering if you have people in your office focused on sort of communication really clearly about what is happening and what your priorities are, and being just as clear as possible about how things are going forward from your office. I think that would be super helpful. And my other question is simply about, I loved hearing the focus on domestic violence. And can you just tell us a little more detail about how you perceive that you're going to be able to focus on that? Like, are you hoping to change some laws or just being more aggressive, but specifically about domestic violence?
Certainly. So look, the communications is no doubt. I'm a career lawyer and pride myself on all I've done in that space. I'm not a communications person, and obviously that's a big part of the job. So we stumbled out of the gate and put ourselves in a position that we didn't put enough scaffolding and context around our positions, and have been working since then to do that. And I think we've been catching up, and I've been meeting with as many people and speaking directly through. And so people will know exactly where we stand and what we're prioritizing. And I've been told that that's been effective. Obviously, doesn't undo the initial communications misstep, but it's been effective in correcting the record. So we'll continue to do that. In terms of kind of a more micro granular level, we do have a dashboard on our website, which can tell you information in almost kind of real time of what the office is handling. We're looking to kind of deepen that and broaden it, but I think it's quite good, as is. On domestic violence, I have to say that we're thinking about a number of things. Our group right now is phenomenal. Both the lawyers, and if anyone has had any interaction with our witness aid services group, they do phenomenal work. And so really it's about trying to figure out how to direct resources to amplify and deepen that work. One thing that we really want to do, we have offices, a couple of offices, in other places in the borough, not by the courts, and want to expand the footprint so we can be going to survivors and meeting them where they are. I think one thing that a lot of the service providers that I've talked to realized during COVID, the model was having survivors kind of come to service providers and come to the DA's office. And we want to be more nimble, if that's the right word, and more responsive is probably the right word, in going to people and meeting them, if not literally where they live, in their neighborhoods, and making ourselves available. So we've got two offices, one in Harlem, one in Washington Heights. It's not downtown. Our downtown office is closer to y'all. But that's one thing that we're really looking at, kind of to get the services connected and to really kind of scale up. We have a phenomenal group that is supporting survivors, but as with the entire system, we have significant backlog, and so what we prioritize is going to be important. We're going to prioritize, gun cases and also domestic violence to get those cases moving through the system. So those are a couple of things we're going to be doing on domestic violence to really address what I think is an urgent need.
Thank you.
Joe?
Hey, Bragg, I'm sorry I'm late. I'll tell you why in a second. I've been in New York since 1976. I've been on the board, I've been in Hell's Kitchen since 79, on the board since 1982. I'm the co-chair of Maria Ortiz. And as she said, by the way, Maria, was over 600 people came to our committee dealing with the public safety issues that really arose out of the poorly managed COVID temporary homeless hotels. I like to make it clear that we don't have any perceptions here. We have lived experience, and our lived experience is that currently the streets have actually changed. I develop affordable housing. We manage and operate as a local not-for-profit. 750 families. I have heard across the range, for low, moderate, middle, people are absolutely nervous. They have been followed, assaulted on the streets. There's constant issues of breaking into buildings. People finding someone in a lobby, kind of stuff. I want you to understand this, because I said this a number of times, that given the ongoing shoplifting in every Duane Reade and Walgreens and bodega, and the constant approach by severely and chronically persistently mentally ill people on the street, people don't feel safe. And I know that we're managing how laws have changed and not changed, and we want to work with you to figure out a way to make it better. I want to highlight, first and foremost, the chronically persistently mentally ill. Our office houses a number of them. However, people on the street right now need another alternative. I will say to you that supportive housing is not the only answer. We have 267 units of it. There are people who are too needy for that model. And we were very heartened to hear that the Midtown Community Court may be actually putting together a version for mental health to help people get the proper assistance for the appropriate level of care that people need. But in the meantime, there's a fear. I had a staff member assaulted between Christmas and New Year's. A 6 foot tall, very solid guy was slashed on the head, and his skull was cracked on 9th Avenue and 40th Street when he went to get a sandwich from the deli. We've had a 90-year-old couple on 9th Avenue knocked to the ground to get their shopping. I am late today because for the last 3 hours, I've been dealing with the police with a burglary in the building in which I live and my office manages, where an artist who is working out of the country, his apartment was broken into by people from the street. It is trashed and it is full of drug paraphernalia. The police are right now treating this as a crime scene. Having lived here for the period of time I have and seen the ups and downs, the crack epidemic, problems in the neighborhood, it has never been this unsafe and random. We are desperate to work with your office to see how you can address this, how we can truly work together, because the answer that that's sort of the way it is really killing us as a neighborhood. And it is so discouraging. I've had to deal with senior citizens in the building I live who are now petrified about walking out And to give you one piece of this, which is remarkable, the folks who were found by the super actually in an apartment, when they ran out and left, they came back an hour later and tried to get the key from our management office saying that they lived there. This is just an unbelievable moment. We are really turning to you for help and leadership to manage this wide range of issues that we have, and not just to let us feel like we're slipping back into the mid-70s here in New York. Is that an impassioned enough moment for you?
It is very impassioned, and I appreciate it. I feel what you feel. I interact with my neighbors and Manhattanites, but hearing those personal narratives stick with me. I convey those to those who I work with about the profound trust that New Yorkers have placed in us. Certainly sorry to hear about what happened today, and we should connect.
I have to go back to a crime scene after this meeting. I mean, that's what I have to do right now.
Yeah. So we should connect specifically on that, and I don't know if maybe our chair can connect us, as obviously that matter that will be coming to my office, and so if our chair can maybe connect us, I'd be happy to. Some of the people I mentioned in our office who work on that, our witness aides and our lawyers, will be engaged in this. But more broadly, I hear you. I live here too. I'm raising a family here too. I've been here for a long time, almost 50 years. The sense of urgency and anxiety and the depth of the public safety concerns, they're palpable. But I really appreciate you sharing that. And most importantly, or equally important, I should say, I appreciate the spirit of partnership. So we're here. This is job. It's our work. We're going to be focused on it. But working in partnership is how we're going to get this done. So hopefully our chair can connect us and we can help you with the current issue and more broadly think about how we can partner going forward.
Thank you very much.
We can absolutely facilitate a connection through our district office, Mr. Bragg. Thank you for that. I am going to call it here, folks. I want to be cognizant of our time this evening and the district attorney's time this evening. I appreciate the board's questions. Mr. DA, I hope we can continue the conversation. We've always wanted to work with all of our elected officials, and we look forward to continuing to do that with you as one of them and in your capacity as our district attorney as well.
I appreciate it. I look forward to the conversation. I look forward to doing the work together. So thank you so
very
much.
Appreciate it. And we will be in touch. And thanks so much to your team also, who has been diligent and communicative and very engaged. And we look forward to that continuing to be the case.
I appreciate that. I appreciate those words. And they're sitting behind me. You can't see them because of our tech issue, but they're here and we're going to get back to work as soon as we get off this call. So thanks so much to all of you.
Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Thank you for that. Continuing on on our agenda this evening. Got my tabs in the way. I'm gonna public hearing, public session, excuse me. We have a lot of folks signed up to speak this evening. Our first vice chair, Jessica, will be managing the hearing, but there's two key topics that folks have signed up to speak about. I'm encouraging people to, if something has been said, it need not be said again. There's going to be some rules we're establishing tonight. And given the volume of folks speaking, we're going to be monitoring this very closely. So Jessica, I pass it over to you for the new rules and starting a public session.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good evening, everyone. As Jeffrey said, we have over 50 people who have signed up for the public session. So in the interest of time, we are going to be limiting everybody to 1 minute. That said, as Jeffrey said, that would mean we're going to be at an hour just at our public session. And so if somebody has already said what you have to share, we ask that you either be incredibly brief or cede your time so that we can move on to decision making and further business. With that, I'm going to ask for Samantha Myers, Beth Whitaker, and Paige Evans to join us. And again, everyone has 1 minute. Jesse, are you able to bring over Samantha?
Doing so now.
Great.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Samantha Myers, Beth Whitaker, Paige Evans.
Got it. Samantha, you should be on.
Yeah, there. Am I there? Hi.
We hear you. Go ahead, Samantha. Your minute started.
I am speaking quickly. Hi, I'm Samantha. I am one of the owners of a business called Let's Dress Up. We have a location on East 85th Street that's been there for 10 years. It's a kids fairy tale themed play and party space. And we are coming soon to 261 West 19th between 7th and 8th. We have been doing some renovations that are taking longer than we hoped, but we plan to be open maybe in the next month. Hosting events when kids are off school, all of that kind of good stuff. And I just wanted to be on. We work really closely with our community board on the Upper East Side, and I know that it's a great resource. We love to be involved in school events, auctions, benefits, community events, whether it's a table to bring crafts and a princess or whatever it is. We really like to be kind of in the community where we are. So we are super excited. And if anyone has suggestions for us or people that we should meet or events that we should be at, we would love to hear about it. It's called Let's Dress Up.
Thank you, Samantha. That's a minute.
19th, very soon.
Great. Thank you. We're happy to have you. Beth, and then Paige, and after that, Judy Cheng.
Hello, I'm Beth Whitaker, Associate Artistic Director of Signature Theater and a 13-year neighborhood resident. Thank you to the Community Board and the Transportation Committee. I'm speaking in support of item number 15 from the Transportation Planning Committee, supplemental street naming in honor of Signature Theater's founder, James Houghton. Jim Houghton had a profound impact on the American theater landscape, the cultural life of New York City, and on this neighborhood where he had two homes, Signature Theater and Manhattan Plaza, where he lived for 21 years with his family. 30 years ago, Jim founded Signature Theater as a distinct home for playwrights, and Signature soon built its own 160-seat theater on 42nd Street between 10th and 11th Avenues, becoming a neighborhood cultural anchor. In 2005, Jim launched the unprecedented Signature Ticket Initiative to make theater accessible to all, offering $15 subsidized tickets for every seat. The initiative has now provided over 1 million tickets. In 2012, Signature opened the Pershing Square Signature Center on 42nd Street between Dyer and 10th Avenues. The center houses 3 theaters and an 8,800 square foot public lobby with a cafe,
Beth,
bar,
that's
and
your
bookstore. Thank you. Thank
So
you for
sorry,
your
I know it's so
consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have Paige?
You do not have Paige.
Okay, so Judy Cheng, and then Pamela Wolf,
Can we
and then
move-
Shruti.
Yeah, can we move to Pamela? Judy needs to accept to come over, and she's yet to do so.
Sure. I see Pamela right there. Go ahead, Pamela.
Here I am. Well, hello. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to ask my question for Mr. Bragg. However, I'm here. I just wanted to, just by way of information, I think everybody on this board is aware that Ed Kirkland, who was a board member for, I think, 31 years, died on January 11th. There was a lengthy obit in the New York Times. For those who missed it, you can track it down, Edward Kirkland. And just to inform everyone, we are putting our heads together to plan an event, which will be a celebration of his life, as well as Bob Trentline. The two of them, we plan to throw a party for them. We picked a date, which would, I suspect it may be flexible, but I think it's going to be June 23rd. And it will be in Chelsea Waterside Park on the riverfront, Pier 64.
Thank you,
Pamela. Where we're
Pamela.
choosing. Sure.
Thank you. Jesse, do we have Paige or Judy?
No, we do not have. Judy is not to accept, and Paige is not here. Barbara Blair's
Okay.
over. I brought Barbara Blair over, and I'm bringing Shruti now.
Great. Barbara?
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name's Barbara Blair. I'm the president of the Garment District Alliance and in your catchment area. I had hoped to address the DA, but one of the top things that we're concerned about and that we ask you to consider when working with the DA's office is repeat offenders in the neighborhood. We have the highest crime rates in the city of New York. And we have been told by the NYPD that you have about 10 people that are repeat offenders that keep going over and over and over. So for the DA to turn his attention to repeat offenders. We also ask that the community board consider applying fair share principles in the Garment District and place a moratorium on further social service or harm reduction sites in the Garment District. We have more than our fair share. I will be talking with your Health and Human Services Committee later this month, where I'll be pointing out where all these uses are, and we'll go into our requests much more in much more depth. And then also to work with the elected officials to ensure that the diversion and intervention programs that they're suggesting some of these individuals that used to be incarcerated go to are in fact in place, and that we have the bandwidth to accommodate them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Looks like we have Judy. Judy Chang, you have 1 minute starting now.
Hi, my name is Judy Chang. I'm Chinese American, born and raised in New York City, 8 years resident in Chelsea. Since March 2020, there's been over 10,000 hate incidents reported, and those are only the ones reported. The numbers are 10 times likely higher because for every one person willing to make a report, there are 9 others who go home with their injuries and stay silent. This has been our experience as Chinese workers for 170 years in the US. 13 months ago, I too was assaulted after a minor altercation at a COVID testing site. The district attorney is wanting to reduce the charges from 4 misdemeanor assaults to just 1 count of disorderly conduct. These are my injuries. I was brutally shoved by a man twice my size and weight. I want to know what we're going to do as a community to stop anti-Asian violence. This is causing us harm as a people. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Asian residents in New York City deserve better. The anti-hate task force is not doing anything.
Thank you, Judy. You know, the DA was with us, and I'm sure our office will be happy to raise this up. Shruti, your minute starts now.
Hi everyone, I'm Shruti. I'm along with Caitlin, Stephanie, and Alex. We represent the Hell's Kitchen Community Cupboard. We offer free food 24/7 outside Bryan Health in a cabinet that sits outside the clinic. We've been operating since August 2021, and we to this date have partnerships with local business to rescue excess food, have a 30% plus active volunteer base. We're asking the community board for assistance to finding a new permanent home for the cupboard. We're an outdoor space with an electrical outlet to set up both a cupboard and a fridge so we can continue offering free food to all neighbors of Hell's Kitchen, and also expand our offerings to include prepared food and foods such as dairy and meat. Thank you so much. Please contact us at hkcommunityfridge@gmail.com with any questions.
Thank you, Shruti. We have Juan Bonilla and Nathan Vajenla. Do we have Juan?
I don't believe we have Juan, so I think we can keep.
Okay, do we have Nathan?
You
Yes.
do have Nathan. Hello, community board.
Great, Nathan, your minute starts now.
All right, great. So I'm out right now, but I wanted to hop on and introduce myself. My name is Nathan. I just started work at a company, not Google, but a company that's near Chelsea Market. And I am currently in East Williamsburg because the housing prices in Chelsea are insane. Cannot find anything close by to my office. Wanted to call and just encourage the community board to allow more units of density and more units of housing in the neighborhood. From 2015 to 2006 to 2020, only about 600 units per year have been permitted in the area. A lot of that due to the zoning restrictions. So I encourage the board to provide more housing so people like me can afford to live in the neighborhood. But yeah, I'd like to introduce myself and thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. You're preaching to the choir, but thank you very much. We have Eric Eisenberg. Eric, you're on. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and your minute starts now.
My name is Eric Eisenberg. I'm a patent attorney living in Hell's Kitchen. I'm not representing anyone here, but I've developed a keen interest in cutting down on truck idling in Hell's Kitchen and keeping our air clean. I would like to thank MCB4 for its continued attention and advocacy on this issue of idling. MCB4 has repeatedly emphasized for years, including in its 2 prior letters to the Department of Environmental Protection, strengthening the idling law is vital to protecting our health. I'm speaking with respect to a new item of business on tonight's agenda, MCB4's 3rd letter to the Department of Environmental Protection on idling. The DEP introduced a rule attempting to weaken the idling law by redefining processing devices exemption in the idling laws. The rule was introduced a few days ago, and the official DEP hearing on this is March 2nd. So this is the last full board meeting that can address this. Under this tight timeline, MCB4 and Christine Berthet prepared a really great emergency letter. It raises three basic and important points. One, MCB4 is entitled to, by law, to a response within 60 days of its last letter. It didn't get that. Two, DEP seeks to rewrite and make weaker a law passed by the City Council. That's City Council's right and obligation, and not.
That's your minute.
I'm here for later on if you need any technical or legal questions about the new item.
Thank you very much. Next we have Lisa Wager. Lisa, yep, there you are,
Yes.
your minute.
Okay. So I'm cutting out the most of my speech just to give you a quick update on FITs. My name is Lisa Wager. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations from the Fashion Institute of Technology at College on 27th, between 7th and 8th. We have a res hall on 34th Street in the district. Quick update on our status. Spring semester classes were delayed 1 week. We just started on Monday on campus, continuing the same vaccination and masking requirements from the fall semester. Every single person who returned to campus, and of course the residence halls, including Kaufman in the district, had to show a negative COVID test, taken no more than 72 hours earlier. So we're keeping our community and the Chelsea community as safe as we can. And there's a terrific new exhibition at the museum at FIT. I encourage you to go. It's free. It's the only museum devoted to fashion in the city, and it's open Wednesday through Saturday. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. 4 seconds to go. Thank you, everyone, for keeping your remarks brief. We're now going to move to the next cohort of topics still in the public session, which is on the issue of Redeye, the purple tongue. We have, as I said, several dozen people signed up, so we would just ask that if you don't have anything new, you don't need to repeat. And this issue will be voted on later this evening. We're going to start with Otis Banks, followed by Patricia Gentile, Diana Lawrence.
I don't see Otis, but I'm bringing Patricia over now.
Great.
Jesse, the other owner is now on there, Peter Cesari.
Okay, thank you. Patricia, you should be able to speak. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Great, your
Hi,
minute
this is
starts
Patricia.
now.
This is Patricia Gentile. I am a third generation Hell's Kitchen resident. My family's been here for over 100 years. I grew up on 40th Street. I currently live on 44th Street for over 30 years. I'm calling in support of the Purple Tongue. I know Otis and Peter for over 10 years and meet many people in Hell's Kitchen, but they are the kind of people that embody the spirit of people we want in the neighborhood. They're community oriented, service oriented, and have a strong sense of entrepreneurship. They care deeply about the neighborhood, the people, and the businesses. And I think the business that they're trying to open is something we need in the neighborhood, especially when we look around and see all the businesses that have closed. If the business opens on West 43rd Street, they will help keep the block viable, safe, and contribute to the rebuilding of businesses in the neighborhood. I am totally confident that they will be respectful of their neighbors and adhere to whatever operating rules they need to. So I am just calling in total support of them and their business. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Diana, and then do we want to go to the gentleman Frank mentioned?
Sure, I brought him over, but I'll get Diana. Diana, are you with us?
There, took off from mute. Now
There we
you
go.
can hear.
Great,
Okay.
thanks, Diana. Your minute starts now.
Okay, I'm Diana Lawrence, and I'm addressing the application by the table at Redeye. As my floor will be their ceiling, I am very, very concerned about adequate soundproofing. They indicate on page 4 in their application answers to 2 questions that they do not intend to bring in a certified acoustic engineer. They have not addressed soundproofing at all, as far as I know, as far as they've expressed it to the public. What are you doing to really soundproof this space, especially as you expect to have live music and will operate 20 hours a day, 7 a.m. to 3 a.m.? These directly affect the 24 apartments above the premises and those on the north side of the street, as well as all the residents of the neighborhood of this block. It is quiet and it is safe and it is secure, and we do not need a place that's open till 3 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have Peter. I think that was the gentleman. Is that correct? Great. Peter, yes. you go ahead and unmute yourself and you have 1 minute.
Yes. Hi, I'm Peter Ciceri, one of the owners of the Purple Tongue. I live in Hell's Kitchen for 16 years, own and operate Redeye Coffee on 9th Avenue. The Purple Tongue is about creating an environment where people will be comfortable, meet new friends, enjoy good food and drinks. We have a large investment to opening and operating our business with a financial obligation to our employees, our vendors, landlord, and more. We're confident we'll meet these financial obligations, providing we operate our business without the limits that were imposed upon us by the community board committee. The previous tenant, Adela, accepted the midnight closing imposed by the community board and faced financial and legal struggles from the beginning of their business till the end. We made a serious effort to compromise. Unfortunately, the community board told us we were using a bait and switch tactic to achieve our license. They would only move forward with a favorable outcome if we agreed to their demands.
We're going to go to Marissa and then Terrence.
Hello, everybody. My name is Marisa Redanti. I'm district leader in Hell's Kitchen. This is a very unfortunate situation because it seems that the operators have still not reached out to the direct neighbors, which is something that is usual. Also, the lease on their space is absolutely requires that the business be closed from 2 a.m. till 7. And when asked about why they put till 3 a.m., the answer was that they were going to ask the landlord to extend the hours, but they didn't have it yet. The same is true, which is really what made people very upset about advertising cocktails when they don't have a liquor license. And the answer was, well, we intend to apply for one. I think there's a lot of miscommunication and some bad information given to the operator. However, I think the letter from the committee was absolutely spot on. And again, it's very unfortunate that this miscommunication of the operator happened. We want to promote small businesses, but only if they do the same protocol that all small businesses do, which is you start off with your wine and beer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marissa. We're going to move on to Terrence.
We don't have
and
Terrence.
Then Ron. I'm sorry.
We don't have Terrence, but we have Ron.
Great. Ron, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
My name's
Ron Wisniewski. I live in one of the 26 apartments directly above the proposed business. First, I would like to thank the Business License Committee for so clearly stating our objections and concerns about the business plan or lack thereof of these owners. I urge you all to support their findings and join in recommending denial of any liquor license for this business. I continue to be absolutely amazed that even after the detailed and reasoned objections their new neighbors and potential patrons raised, they still have made no effort to reach out to us to discuss our concerns and find solutions. I think that says it all. I feel confident in stating that the residents of our block are adamant that a 3 a.m. closing time, full liquor license, and live music are non-starters for us. We are determined that our quiet residential block stays that way. I've lived in my apartment for 30 years. Most of us at Manhattan Plaza are actors, now old actors. Disturbing the sleep of old actors is there with a stick. It's not a good business.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, now we should have Sanjay.
We do not have Sanjay.
Okay, Craig McPherson.
I believe Craig is with us.
Great, Craig.
Nope, maybe I'm wrong. Hold on, sorry. Maybe we have Natalie. Sorry, we got to move on from Craig.
Okay, Natalie, your minute starts now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Natalie Frazier. I'm the president of the West 43rd Street Block Association. I'm here speaking on behalf of those of us who live in the smaller buildings along the north side of this residential street across from the proposed Purple Tongue. Our homes where we live, rest, have families would absolutely be negatively impacted by a late night bar open until 3 a.m. with all the other concerns listed. While I completely support local business and want to see empty storefronts filled, it's important that these businesses come into the neighborhood to complement our community, not turn it into something else. Unfortunately, this applicant, although they say they care about the neighborhood and will be respectful of the neighbors, have yet to actually demonstrate any willingness or interest in working with the community concerns. They only mention their financial investment and their own hardships. That's really not supporting us. So unless and until they agree to the stipulations outlined in the BLP letter, the West 43rd Street Block Association supports denial of their wine, beer, and cider application. Thank you.
Natalie. Thank you, Natalie. Jesse, could we bring over Hannah O'Malley?
Sure. We do not have Hannah O'Malley.
Okay, let's, I know we heard from Sanjay in the last, oh no, he's on here twice, apologies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe Fabrice LaForge, LaForest.
If he's available.
Yep.
Sanjay, do we have you?
Okay, but Fabrice is not accepting to come on over, so I don't think he wants to speak anymore. Oh, no, he is. Sorry.
Hey, how's everything tonight?
Yeah, we hear you.
Fabrice, you're breaking up a little bit, but your minute starts now.
All right. I just wanted to let you know that I've been living in Hell's Kitchen for 7 years now, and I've known all this from my previous jobs and my recent job at the moment. And the clients that he always bring has always been impacting the job, because they had always been impeccable. They has always been nice. So I would like to give him my support. I understand that the community and everything are giving a lot of problem for the 3M, but I think that Otis can work with them for that, and I think that is going to be a great impact for the community. So I give him my full support, and hope you guys can do the best that you can do. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Fabrice.
Righty,
at this time, I'm sorry. Okay, at this time, we do have more people on the topic, but I think we've heard a fair amount on the range of issues that are being considered. So one of the techniques that we had proposed using, or want to propose using, is to use the raised hands function. If there's something that hasn't already been shared, you can let us know. Maybe we'll spend a minute on that. But if you are simply echoing the things that have been raised, we're going to ask you to indicate if you are speaking in favor of the establishment, or if you are against the establishment, and as a way to just gauge where community feedback is on this. So Jesse, will that work for us to first do if someone has anything that?
Well, let's do the foreign in opposition, if that's all right, because
sure.
Wipe out the hands that are currently raised.
So I'm going to, just so everybody understands, the public understands, I'm going to lower everybody's hand. Jessica is going to ask the question. You should raise your hand if you are for that, if you're in support of the question, and then we're going to do the same with asking the opposite question, and we'll count it from there.
But to be clear, we're only asking this of people who have signed up to speak during this session.
Well, I mean, we're asking if people are here from the public who want to comment on this, it's about this topic only, basically. But yes, but if they're out from the public session, if they have the, you know.
Okay, so let's move everyone's hands. There we
go.
Done, great. Okay, so if you are in favor, oh, wait, okay, we had someone put their hand up prematurely. If you are here today for the public session to speak in favor of Purple Tongue, please raise your hand using the raised hand function.
This is in favor of the applicant. All right.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I have 9.
9.
Right.
And note that two of those people spoke.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we'll remove the hands.
Oh, and we have one hand, right? Someone in our section who's from a part of the public who's still there. Sorry.
Okay, so 10 with, as Frank said, 2 people who have already spoken.
Okay, I'm lowering everybody's hand.
Exactly, thank you. And everyone, thank you for your patience as we experiment with this new approach. Now, if everyone who is not in favor of the applicant can please raise their hand, and specifically the applicant being Purple Tongue. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
How do you count the phone?
Yeah, if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand by doing *6.
I have 12 in the attendees. Is anyone voting in the, no?
Yeah, and one of those 12 spoke already.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. At this time, does anyone have anything that they feel they must say that has not been addressed in other comments or in the general calculation of 10 people voting for the applicant and 12 people voting not in favor of the applicant? And if you do, please raise your hand and you will be limited to 1 minute. And if you are repeating yourself or repeating someone else, we will have to stop the session.
All right, I have 2 people. I'll bring them over now.
3 people.
All right, let's.
Okay, Marnie, Douglas, and Robert. Okay, Marnie, your minute starts.
Okay, you guys can hear me?
You have an echo.
Okay. I just wanted to say my name is Marnie Halassa. I'm Peter Cesari's wife. And also, I just wanted to say that there's a lot of misconception actually going on right now. I want to admonish the board members that there's another side to the draft letter about us. Number one, there's a lot of misinformation about this application. First of all, the space is already soundproofed. It's soundproofed from the owner of Adela. So that's already there. And actually, we do agree. If you guys want another sound engineer's report, of course, we're going to give that to the community board and to residents. Also, this is a restaurant with a beer and wine license. I repeat, beer and wine. This is not a full liquor license. Also, we're not having amplified music. We agreed to that. There is no outdoor shed. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation. So we want the board to know that we are open. We asked Manhattan Plaza, we asked for an email of all the residents that live above. We didn't get it. We sent an email to
Marnie,
a multitude of people, to meet with us, and we wanted to introduce ourselves. The only person
Marnie,
who responded was Marissa
or
Dante, and we met with her. So we want the board to know
Marnie,
cut her off.
the minute is passed. Jesse, who's next?
Douglas Leland.
Thank you, Douglas.
Oh, there
Douglas,
we go. I'm here.
Okay, your minute starts.
I agree with everything that's been said prior to objection to this. Two things that I have not heard mentioned was the amount of people allowed in the venue. The number originally was listed as 94. Now I've been in this space, unless you're going to populate it with munchkins, you're not getting 94 people in there. Now I heard this revised to say it was 74 with 24 outside and 50 inside. Again, this is not a large space. The people there have also about the sound and the hours, but they have just not come back to speak. They may have spoken with Marisa, but they've not spoken with the Tenants Association or the people who live upstairs, and those are really valuable.
Thank you, Douglas. That has been covered, so thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have Robert Nussbaum next.
Yeah,
is that
Robert
correct?
Nussbaum is here.
Okay, Robert, please do keep it to anything that has not been covered. Your minute starts.
Okay, my mother says that nothing good happens after midnight. I heard Peter say that unlike Adela, he needs those 3 hours in order to make his money. So what is going to happen there between midnight and 3 a.m.? He hasn't been transparent with us. He met with Marisa. You heard what Marisa said. I say, keep on moving. It's a street. It's not on the avenue. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Robert. Jesse, did we have, that was the 3 we agreed to bring over?
Yeah, that's the 3 we're going to bring over.
Okay, great. So thank you all for your time and attention on this topic. We are now going to move to another topic that we've heard on before with a lot of community interest, and that is for the Gadfly on 15th Street. And so I understand that Stephen is joining us as Matthew Grimaldi due to some tech issues. So Stephen as Matthew will start with you, followed by Barry and Kara. Stephen, you can just let me know when you're over taking yourself off mute.
They should both be over, Barry and Stephen.
Stephen, do we have you? Oh, yep, you're on mute. So just be sure to unmute yourself.
Got it. Sorry.
Okay, your minute starts now.
Hi, I'm Steve Stroster, and I'm the president of the West 15th Street Block Association. We're asking you to vote no on Gadfly's letter to the SLA. Our block has been through this once before. Pierre Latte, a wine bar with a full liquor license, live music, outdoor tables, got everyone up in arms. It was the first time these premises were used in this way, and it had the most ruinous impact on our homes. No mitigating measures are going to change the fact that these premises are located in an apartment building and a residentially zoned block. At Gadfly's 500-foot hearing, the judge's recommendation was that their application be disapproved. The reason given was that Gadfly had not met the public interest requirement. That judge got it right. There are 27 liquor establishments within 500 feet of these premises. At 1,500 feet, there are 181 liquor licenses with 21 pending licenses. Chelsea doesn't need another bar. What we do need are businesses that really do serve the public interest. If the community board's objective is to strike a balance between residential living and business interests, a proposed bar located on a quiet residential block that has over 200 liquor establishments around the corner.
Thank you, Stephen.
Can't possibly meet those goals.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move to Barry and then Kara.
You hear me? Yeah.
We do. Your minute starts now.
Okay. My name is Barry Mound. I'm an attorney for the West 15th Street Block Association. And this case was at the SLA on January 19th. The commission has sent it back to the community board for clarification of the community board's position. This is the only bar on this block, and we ask that the 500-foot rule be applied here. There is absolutely no public interest justification in allowing a license to spill over to this residential block. There are 27 within 500 feet on the avenues. Because of the remand to the community board, you are in a strong position here and have a special responsibility to support the community in this case. And for that reason, we're asking that you recommend against this license and send a message to the SLA that the 500-foot rule has real meaning for communities and should not be ignored as the SLA often does.
Thank
So
you,
we're
Barry.
asking for that protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kara and then Stephanie. Kara, yep, I see you there. Your minute starts now.
Hello, good evening, Community Board 4. I'm Kara Pally.
Hello, members. I'm Joe Pally.
We are the owners of Gadfly Bar at 258 West 15th Street. We are born and raised in New York City. We're raising our 2 kids here in New York as well. We're pleased to be here today with the CB4's BLP committee having recommended approval with stipulations for a liquor license application. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the time that was spent in the subcommittee meeting and the opportunity that it gave us to get feedback from community members. We agreed to all stipulations without issue, including closing at 11 p.m. weekdays and 12 a.m. weekends. It has been a long road to get here, but through this process, we've been fortunate to meet with hundreds of neighbors on West 15th Street. Their support in the form of kind words and letters to the State Liquor Authority has been overwhelming. Around 300 letters of support have been sent to the SLA, with more than 150 letters from the West 15th Street block alone. More than half of the building residents directly above Gadfly Bar have sent in letters of support, with dozens more from the buildings immediately surrounding us. Honestly, we're blown away. Gadfly Bar is ready to go. We've invested our life savings here to build a beautiful space that we can't wait to share with our community.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stephanie. And then Daniel.
Yes, hi, this is Stephanie. So I want to say I understand the plight that Kara just offered about life savings and things like that. And that's just an emotional plea. That doesn't add value to the neighborhood. I'm speaking against Gadfly Bar. I used to live right above them, apartment 1FW, and I moved because of Gadfly. It upended my life, and it's going to upend the lives of many other people. People work from home these days as well and need to be able to tend to their families, get a good night's sleep. It's a residential street. And again, it upended my entire life. I had to move. I was living there for 3 years. So while I have compassion for Kara, this is a business decision and they should really look elsewhere. I yield my time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Daniel.
Hey, Daniel Nardiccio. I live at 227 right down the street from Gadfly, and I am 100% in support of it. This block is dead. Businesses have closed. It's spooky. There are rats running around. I walk my dog all the time down there, and I'm just like, I can't wait for them to open. They seem like they're willing to comply with what you guys are asking, what people are asking, closing at 11. We need business. We need life on the street. It doesn't feel safe without it. And I don't agree. It's a residential block, but we have to have businesses on the block to keep the place alive. It's right now dead on 15th Street. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I think we pulled, did I see Edward?
Yeah,
yes, I'm here.
Great. Edward, your minute starts now.
I'm Edward Curtis. I live on West 16th Street between 7th and 8th. I'm supporting Gadfly's application for the letter. I have to say that I miss Pierre Loti. It was a good place for me to meet neighbors and get to know them. I'm happy that we have a new family-style restaurant opening in the neighborhood. I'm concerned about the number of darkened storefronts, the homeless, the drug users, and basically crime in the area. I'm glad that the Pallies, a young couple who are responsive to the neighborhood, will be operating a restaurant, and I hope they'll be here a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Okay, we are going to propose doing the same structure that we just used with the last establishment. I see that there are some hands up in the attendees, although I'm not sure that those people were signed up for the session. Nonetheless, we would propose, again, Jesse, let's remove folks' hands and ask people the first round to please, again, if you are in favor of the applicant, then you should please raise your hand now. And sorry, Jesse, remind me one more time how you do that by phone. Just see a few phones there.
*6.
*6, okay. So. I show 10 in favor of the applicant.
And with one who spoke already.
Yeah.
Sorry, who is that?
Kara Bailey.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
And Edward Curtis who was still in panelist getting moved over. He had his hand raised now.
Okay, so 11 and 2.
Right, because Edward spoke as well.
Yep, great, thank you. Now we'll take everyone's hands down. Okay, and if you are here tonight to speak against the applicant, please raise your hand. $12 against with 1. It's a little confusing because Matthew was Stephen. So I guess, I don't know how to, 13, I think actually we just got Stephanie added, so that's 13 against,
Yeah.
with 1 having spoken.
Barry too, so that's 2.
2.
And quick question, Jesse and Jessica, how many raised their hands for in favor?
11.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, at this time, if we'll remove the hands again, we will allow people 1 minute to speak as long as you are adding something that has not already been said, and a lot of issues were touched on in people's remarks. So please, please be thoughtful in your delivery. We can bring over Judy, and then.
No.
Wow.
Steve, no. Stephen, I mean, you already spoke. But let's bring Judy and Sharon, and if we are not hearing new topics, we will need to close the session. Do we have Judy?
Judy, are you with us? No? Okay. Sharon is here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sharon. Okay, Sharon, your minute begins now.
Yes, so I just want to add that I've lived on 15th Street for 30 plus years. And when Pierre Loti was here, and even though they said that they would close at certain times, the spillage and the noise of the drunk and rowdy people, and we'd call the police to complain and nobody would come. And now that the pandemic is going on, police show up for less. So I vote no for having them open. I'm sorry, I know it's really tough, but there are businesses on our block.
Thank you, Sharon.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we don't have Judy,
Can
yeah,
I
Jesse.
interrupt one quick moment? Just because Bill Barack, who's the head of Council of Chelsea Block Associations, had signed up, he just signed up in the wrong place. And he speaks for a number of organizations. Can we bring him over?
Sure.
All right.
But he too should say something someone else hasn't said, despite representing many voices.
As my chorus was to be brevity and respectful this evening.
Bill, are you with us? Bill, you have to accept when I ask you to promote. There we go. Thank you.
I'm not seeing Bill, but Bill, can you unmute yourself?
Bill, you have to. Star 9 to unmute.
I unmute. Can you hear me now?
We
We can hear you. Your minute starts
Yeah,
now,
I'll be
Bill.
quick. Okay, CCBA, you probably know, I've lived in here for 46 months, you might be that years. I don't know where the people were told what's going to be opening there from the block. My understanding is there's some problem with Department of Buildings that they're not supposed to be open until matters are resolved. My understanding is that because of the DOB thing, they aren't actually supposed to come before the community board for a hearing, and that it has to be resolved before that happens. CB4 has a policy, I know it's written in stone, that shouldn't have liquor establishments on side streets. The thing about empty storefronts, well, they could be filled up on the avenue blocks, not on side streets. And CCBA has 40 blocks covered and 20 members, and we voted to not approve the application, and it should be denied.
Thank you, Bill. Okay,
Jessica, just a
Yes.
point is that Bill Borough was counted in the wrong category. He was counted as in favor of the
Thank you.
applicant when you made the count.
Thank you very much. We'll make sure the notes are augmented. At this time, we are going to close this session. We have heard on a range of topics. The committee, this has been a topic that has been heard many, many times, and many people who are raising their hands now have previously had opportunities to speak on this. So with the permission of the chair, we will close this session.
Acknowledged. Thank you, Jessica, for that hearing. And just so folks know, oftentimes this is where our attendance drops off, but I would encourage you to stay to hear the discussion from our co-chairs of the BLP committee, as well as members of the board on the two topics that were just heard from. Moving on along in our agenda is in fact the adoption of the agenda. I would note a minor edit in the district manager's report section. Unless there's complete revolt and preference to call a recall, we had our board elections in December, so we're just going to eliminate that from the agenda. Any other questions or amendments on the agenda?
Lowell, I tried. Sorry, man.
Hearing none, the agenda is adopted.
I have my hand raised.
Oh, Twee, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, it was just because of the new format. I wasn't sure if we could, at least for posterity under the public hearing, have the subcategories of these two to know that they were specific. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, you're referring to the public session, right?
And then since we had two specific for Redeye and Gadfly, to have just the way we do public hearing, uniform land use review procedure, public hearing on, because there's part of the public session, and like those, we have the general and then the two subsets.
Sure, I think the minutes would reflect that, given sort of like the topic that folks would speak on. We don't typically parse out because members of the public can come speak on anything. Jesse, am I correct in that?
Yeah, no, I think this was just a unique scenario because we had so many people for each topic, so we did it in a hearing format, but normally this is not the format. This is not a policy going forward in the sense that this is how we'll be doing future public sessions, just for clarity's sake.
All right, thank you for clarifying. So now that if we know that there's another hot topic, hot location, it may happen in the future, but it's not a regular thing.
Correct.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And we purposely lump them together, right? That Jessica and Jesse spent time before categorizing so we could make it as efficient and appropriate as possible. And we would do that if this arises, a need arises further. Hearing no other questions on the agenda, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you, David.
Motion, right.
Kristen, second. Any objections? The agenda is adopted. On to the minutes. Thank you to our new co-secretaries. Our former secretary, Mr. Noble, with a question, please.
Not a question, but a compliment. They did a tremendous job, I must tell you. And they made one addition that you should all be aware of. In the elected officials a testimony. At the top, there's a little link there that you can go to their newsletters. That's something I wish I had thought to do, but it's very helpful, real helpful. So they did a great job. So that's it.
Thank you for that. And thank you to Katie and Blake for the great work on those minutes. Twee?
Thank you. Having taken notes before, I appreciate Mike's efforts and now the two new co-secretaries' efforts in this matter. Two minor suggestions: could we paginate the notes? And the other comment had to do with page 4, which if people don't know what SALT is, the unfair salt deduction caps, could that be spelled out? I noticed that the following bullet point, EITC, was spelled out.
I'm seeing nodding from our co-secretaries, so thanks for that, Twee.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments on the minutes, we'll take a motion to adopt as amended.
Motion to adopt as amended.
Thanks,
Second.
Dale. And the second from Christine. Any objection? Excellent. The minutes are passed. With that, we're going to move to reports from our elected officials. I know our borough president was with us a bit earlier this evening, but I believe he had to slip out to another meeting. But Tricia, are you with us? Great. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tricia Shimamura, and I'm going to be extremely brief because I know you have a big agenda tonight, and you all have already been doing a great job with your public session. I'm the director of community affairs for the borough president's office. I'm so sorry that the borough president had to leave for another meeting. It's been a long night for us tonight, but I am here. I will continue to be here. I will be continuing to take notes, and we'll be giving him a full report tomorrow. A couple things. One is that March 1st is the deadline to reapply or to apply to our community board. And I know that CB4 still has a lot of reapplicants who need to get in their applications. So please do so by March 1st. Capital budget requests can be accepted through February 24th. So those are two big deadlines. Those are both the budget requests and the application can be found on our website. I also just want to note that we do have still an abundance of PPE in our office, N95 masks, hand sanitizer. We're working on trying to get more home rapid test kits. So please keep us posted if you or an organization in your community is looking to help those in need. We want to make sure that you guys are getting anything else that you absolutely need to stay safe. That's it for me right now. So I'm looking forward to working with you all. Thank you, Jeffrey, and have a great night.
Thank you, Tricia, so much. We appreciate it. And of course, look forward to more from you and the borough president. And indeed, send in those applications if you haven't already to the community board. Next up on our list this evening, based off our report, State Senator Brad Hoylman. State Senator, are you with us?
I am, Mr. Chair. Good to see you. Good to be here. What a great meeting you've had so far. I've been listening to it, and I really appreciate the exchange with District Attorney Alvin Bragg. My office is working closely with him. He mentioned ghost guns and the fact that the numbers are rising across the state and in Manhattan. Just want to remind everyone that New York was a nation-leading state by passing a ban on unserialized guns. I passed that legislation with Assemblywoman Linda Rosenthal. But Jeffrey, everyone's talking about redistricting. The new lines are out. The good news is CB4 is squarely in my Senate district. Our Senate district, once we vote on it tomorrow, will change as of January, not immediately, but as of next January to Senate District 30. Can I drop in the chat? If I can't drop in the chat, I don't think I have a chat function. If you go to my board report, there's a link where you can see the maps. Roughly, the district runs from Canal Street up to 81st on the west side. Our Senate district has lopped off the east side portion of the district because we were 40,000 people in excess of the constitutional requirements. Republicans did that to jam as many Democratic voters into Manhattan as possible. Nevertheless, that has changed. Just wanted to also let folks know that New York is, the legislature now is undertaking one of its most important roles, which is budget review, which basically runs through February 16th. We've gone through public hearings with public protection, elementary, secondary education, workforce development, housing, environmental conservation, human services. Next week, we're going to be taking on higher ed, health, mental hygiene, transit, and economic development. Those will be later in the month. But you can log on to the Senate's website if you want to watch these. They can be very informative, if not lengthy. Again, if you go to my report, there is information on the dates for those hearings. Wanted to give a shout out, Jeffrey, to Community Board 4 for going out to support Councilmember Botcher's press conference today on safe streets. As I mentioned at the press conference, I'm fighting in Albany with Assemblymember Godfrey for something called Sammy's Law, which would allow New York City, believe it or not, to lower its own speed limit. It's hard to believe that we don't have that right or privilege already, but we hope to get that passed this session. And then finally, I would encourage the board to review the City Planning Commission's letter on the Penn Station redevelopment plan. It echoes a lot of what I and others have been saying, which is we need more transparency around this project, including how much it's going to cost taxpayers. And hopefully, we'll be working with the new city administration and the Hochul administration, which I think has taken a very positive step on this. And Jeffrey, I know you're going to be involved in your board every step of the way. I don't want to keep you much longer, only to say that there are a number of new bills that I've introduced, and you can read all of those in my board report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Do you have time for a question from Christine?
Of course.
Hi, Christine, go ahead.
Brad, thank you. Thank you so much for your support of safety. I have a question for the budget. You know that we have been writing, as well as Gail Brewer, to remove the heliport from the park. And it seems that one of the corollary would be to get some revenue to the park, and maybe some revenue from the state budget, which is typically funding parks. So I just want to encourage you to look into that. And
you mean as a trade, to replace the revenue that would be lost from the loss?
Yeah, or a portion of it to make it.
Let me be candid. I don't think that's the issue. I think we should pass the bill that Dick Godfrey and I carry to end the heliport in the park. I think it's our legislative prerogative to do that. On shoppers, and I appreciate the work that Gail and Jerry and others have done on this issue for years. I carry a new bill that would both end the rights for non-essential helicopter use in the park, end the city's ability to grant concessions in their city-owned helipads for non-essential helicopters, and third, create a new cause of action for New Yorkers against shopper companies, including those in New Jersey. I think I can do this currently in the law. We have federal preemption to worry about every step of the way, because this is all regulated by the FAA. That's why, a lot of our efforts have been really stymied because we are organizing at the city level, but this issue is handled in Washington, D.C., sadly. I'm hopeful that by taking state action against the heliport with this legislation, by ending the city's concession, and by creating a new cause of action, we can get around that federal preemption. But I think it's a good idea to think about how the park might lose money. But frankly, I think that's the least of our concerns, or it's not the top concern.
Right. I mean, it has been posited that they could have terminated the use long time ago because they had judgment.
I don't think the revenue's that great.
It's 800, I think it's 800,000 a year or something like that.
1.7.
Yeah.
1.7.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
anyway,
that's
it's
not
a big.
that's not making a difference. Yeah.
Right.
I think
right.
Dale would agree. You
So
know?
anyway, I felt I had to bring it up.
Well, no, I appreciate that. We don't have an official request for that, but I mean, this is the first I've heard of it. So
Right.
if you guys think that's what's stopping the helipad from shutting down,
okay.
Again,
well, we look forward to the legislation. Thank you for flagging, Christine, and for the answer,
Thank you.
Senator. We'll be engaged, as we often are.
As you are. Thank you so much.
Mr. Pasquarella, I'm going to pause on your question and go to our, thank the senator for his time and for being with us this evening. Brad, really appreciate it. And good luck in Albany.
Thank you.
And I want to pass the floor over to our esteemed council member, Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So yes, on the helicopters, it's my understanding, without being specific as to who I speak to, that it is up to the governor and the mayor. And I think that along with what you, Senator, stated, the trust could find the money. It's the issue of somebody has to be able to say, we are no longer going to have this heliport. So that's why I wrote the letter. And I hope we get an answer, and I hope that we get rid of the heliport. So I just want to say it is 1.7, but it is findable, is my understanding. The second issue is Pier 76. I know that former Governor Cuomo did a great job. No tow pound, but we are writing, we will send you a copy. We got to find a tow pound. And I know that it's not top of your agenda, but I do think it's hundreds of 311 calls from people who are idiots, perhaps, put their car in the wrong place, it gets towed. I know how Jeffrey feels. But I also feel bad for the city because you got to be a friendly face. So there's no reason the people have to go to Brooklyn or the Bronx to get their car. We got to figure out something. So I'll just let you know, I'm putting new administration, new commissioner of the police department, find a place. I have some ideas. They don't seem to be thinking of them, but I'm just letting you know I'm focused on that. Third, it's in Board 7, but the Manhattan Neighborhood Network sold their building, to their credit, at 537 West 59th Street to Project Renewal, to their credit. It didn't go to a condo, which I appreciate tremendously. So now the issue for me, and I don't know how others feel, the city, previous administration, don't know how this one feels, wants Project Renewal to do 200 formerly homeless women. My issue is not the Project Renewal, for which I have great respect. I want permanent housing. And apparently you could do 60 units of permanent, and you can do 200 of affordable, of transitional. I still want the permanent. So just so you know, I'm focused on that. And I don't know how you feel. It's sort of on the border of your communities, but just so you know, there's a lot of concern from the community, how they feel about permanent versus transitional. I don't know. They don't want transitional. Just like you, I am focused on Midtown Court. I know that we have some interest in getting the court going, but we're going to put more pressure on that. We are working with their services, as you are, and I have to say they had a wonderful meeting the other day. But it seems to me, if we're talking about all these issues, Midtown Court, now downtown you go if you get and end up in criminal court, and then my understanding is you sort of get referred uptown. It's very iffy, and it's not a clear support mechanism for those who need the support. So we really, really, really need Midtown Court. I also am very, not in your district, but back to this issue of the Dwayne Reeds, the CVS's, people stealing from retail. So on 94th and Broadway the other day, somebody stole, a customer saw it. The customer said to his credit, don't do it. For lack of a better word, the thief suspect stabbed the customer. The person who was off duty, to the credit, they'd hired an off-duty officer, shot the person who had committed the crime. So luckily he's okay, but the other two ended up in the hospital. Everybody will be okay. But this has got to stop everywhere we go. So I have been researching the numbers. So now I have the numbers of all the retail theft in the borough of Manhattan. It has, I don't even know how many percentages increased So I am going to try to focus on that. Nitya, I just want to thank you over and over again for your work with the developments in your area, because in other parts of the borough and certainly in my area, everybody's saying, let's do what they did in Board 4 and at obviously Fulton and Chelsea Elliott. So you should just know it's such a great thing that you did. And it gives us ballpark and benchmarks. And we appreciate it very much. We too have budget deadlines. We have a newsletter that goes out every Monday and every Thursday. It's a huge amount of work. It's online. You can find it on just Gail Brewer City Council. It says newsletter. You can get the copy yesterday yesterday. And it includes the fact that on Friday, the City Council as a whole has a how to apply for the budget that you want to get, either expense or capital, that's information, and also the dates coming up for when material is due to the City Council, no matter who your council member is. I also want to say, as you probably know, I'm in the leadership of the City Council with Speaker Adrian Adams, and also working on oversight and investigation as one of the top committees in the City Council. And I'm sure you'll hear more about some of the topics that we're going to be overseeing and investigating. Thank you very much.
You're chair of that committee, right?
I am chair of that committee, and I love it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent, great news, and thank you for sharing that. And Gail, I believe we're on record that we have long understood and supported that the Topan was a municipal use, and we would work hard to find an appropriate site in CB4. You know, the foot of the marshalling yards is a site we've long contemplated as having make a whole lot of sense. So figuring out how we could shoehorn that in with what the state wants to do. We're on record for that. So
okay, I just think there's a new administration and nobody seems to know what happened before. So I'm just always pushing for the next effort.
Yep. Leslie, your hand was up first. Maria, I just want to do one question for now, if you'll indulge me. So Leslie gets the question for the council member.
Mine wasn't a question. Mine was just a thank you. That's it. Just thank you for all your work. I'm done.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Hi, Councilmember Brewer. I'm glad you brought up the project renewal project. I know it's right on the border of our community board, but we have a lot of Midtown West parents, a lot of PS 111 parents that go to that toddler playground, that young playground that's right on that lot.
I'm the one that got it funded, Leslie. I know it very well. Thank you.
Exactly. So I was wondering that, from what I understand, and please correct me, that the project renewal project is 200 beds, like you said, temporary. Is it for women with mental illness? Because I know there was some concern with that, being that it's literally in the, the building is right on that playground, right in the playground. And it's right behind a school. So what can we do? You said you would rather see that being the permanent housing, because then it automatically lowers, right? Don't the beds would lower to around 50, or is that incorrect? If it's permanent.
Gail is frozen.
Oh, I thought she was just knocked out by my.
I was like, I've never seen Gail pause for so long.
I was a little nervous. I had to run.
So hopefully Gail can chime back in, join us, though I saw the square just adjust. I think we should hold on to that.
We can just table it. I'm sure it's new. We can go back to it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I want to move on to our next report. Office of Congressmember Carolyn Maloney. Betsy is here. Betsy, are you still with us?
I am.
Great.
Thank you. First, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Betsy. I work for Representative Maloney, and I'm going to be taking over being the representative from our office to CB4. I do already know some of you. I've been the representative to CB5, and I'm on the Penn Station ESD working group. So I worked with some of you there, and I'm sure was on with many of you for our 2 very late night public hearings. But now on to the update. So that's me. The Congresswoman is thrilled to her support of the American Rescue Plan will soon pay off big for New Yorkers. The Department of Transportation announced they are awarding a $6.2 billion grant to the MTA. This funding will create job security for 66,000 MTA employees and help avoid rate hikes, maintain service levels, and keep New York moving. New York artists and arts organizations have been deeply impacted by COVID. We know that, and that they are also critical to our city's recovery. So this past month, the Congresswoman announced her first round of recommendations for the National Endowment for the Arts Award, totaling approximately $2 million in grants to be distributed across 85 award recipients. Lastly, as part of her oversight work, Congresswoman Maloney wrote to the FDA urging them to reassess their 3-month blanket deferral period for men who have sex with men in light of the current national blood shortage declared by the American Red Cross. Last year, the Congresswoman successfully pushed the FDA to revise its previous 1-year blanket deferral rule down to 3 months, and we will continue to take steps to end the discriminatory restrictions on donations. If you all have any questions or need assistance with any federal agency, I don't think I have chat features, so I'll give you my email here. This is our easiest to remember email, but I check it every day. It's urgentny12@mail.house.gov, or give us a call, 212-860-0606, and we will be happy, just ask for Betsy, and I'll be happy to assist. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Appreciate the work the Congress member is doing, and thanks for being here tonight. Bert, did you have a question for Betsy? No? Okay. Thank you. All right, Betsy, we appreciate your time this evening, and do keep up that work on the blood donation. Many of us would happily give blood if we were able to, so thank you for that.
We will. Thank you.
With that, that concludes our reports of elected officials this evening, and so I'm going to pass the floor to our esteemed district manager, Mr. Bodine.
Hi, everybody. I'll be very, very brief. I'm the district manager for Manhattan Community Board 4. Just a reminder that for the month of February, the Chelsea Land Use Committee will be meeting on Monday, February 14th, not their normal day, which is the third Monday. And then the executive committee will be meeting on Tuesday, February 22nd, instead of the Monday. This is all due to the holiday. All other committees are meeting during their regular scheduled time. And that is it.
Perhaps record-breaking, Jesse. Thank you for that. On to the chair, your chair's report. As the state senator noted, I was really pleased to join on behalf of Board 4, along with the co-chairs of the Transportation Committee, Christine and Dale, to join Councilmember Botcher, State Senator Brad Hoylman, and a host of other residents and advocates for a call for the swift implementation of safety improvements on 10th and 11th Avenues in our district. We're on the record long advocating for those, and this was a demand to get the city to do it. It was the council member's first press conference too, so it was an exciting moment for him and for our community. A formal announcement this evening. I'm really excited to be establishing the Sanitation Planning Working Group. This is going to be a working group that will meet for the next 6 months to establish and develop a new standards to keep trash inside existing and new buildings. As many of you have heard us talk about and have yourself exclaimed, we have a trash problem in this town, and we need to think of creatively about a whole host of ways to approach the issue of sanitation, both on new and old. So the co-chairs of this committee are going to be this working group are going to be David Solnick, who's on the Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee, and Christine Berthet, our co-chair of Transportation. They will be joined by Lowell Kern, Peggy Cow, Alan Oster, Blake Carisu, Bob Benfato, Marty DeCat, Sarah Appleton, and Katie Savage. The committee will begin meeting 2 weeks from now, I believe. They're going to be determining their schedule accordingly. So once that's been established by the committee, their work will begin. City agencies will be invited as is appropriate, but we look forward to this working group's recommendations, at which point in time it will work its way through the standard process to formulate policy through the board, so relevant committees will take up their recommendations accordingly. This was mentioned. Oh, Jesse, go ahead. Sorry.
For clarity's sake, just for going forward too, this is a working group. This is not a committee or a task force, which differs, as Jeffrey said, that anything that comes out of the working group is actually going to be sent to the committees for review, and that's where the public conversation will be happening. So the working group is not in open meetings or will have an announced schedule.
Thanks, Jesse, for that clarification. Want to pause for a couple of moments. Pamela mentioned this earlier, but we had some might call them two Chelsea legends. Actually, I would in my civic West Side book. The passing most recently of former board member Ed Kirkland, and then just before him, Bob Trentline, who was also on board 4. I got to know them both. Bob more so through to the Chelsea Reform Democratic Club. And then Ed, because he was an amazing parliamentarian and his coif of white hair was one of a kind. And I was honored to play him in CB4's musical comedy committee presentation of Ed Kirkland Superstar, which was the show that our esteemed J.D. Nolan, the chair of the musical comedy committee, wrote on Ed's departure from the board almost 10 years ago. These folks were the definition of dedicated to their community. The New York Times obituary of Ed was moving, even if you didn't know him. And I received numerous notes when friends and colleagues from across the 5 boroughs saw Ed's obit in the Times, noting it was sort of came about at the same time it was announced I was taking over as chair. And it was very humbling as many notes said, wow, look what Board 4 has done for the city of New York. So I just wanted to take a moment to pause to acknowledge them. Pamela, you're still here. We kept you here if there's anything else to share. If anybody has a very brief anecdote or something to share, we welcome that. But these two were one of a kind. So just wanted to acknowledge David and then Pamela.
Yeah, hi. In remembering Ed, I think we should acknowledge Pamela for being Ed's guardian during the 7 last years of his life, at his request as his memory failed. This was an extraordinary act of compassion and generosity toward Ed, who until then had been much more a partner in advocacy than a close friend of Pamela. A real testament to the power of community.
Thanks, David. Pamela?
Thank you, David. Yes, it was an honor for me to serve and to be the person who got the privilege of looking after Ed in his last years and to see him gracefully out the door. It was his choice, and we did our damnedest to make sure that his wishes were fulfilled, and I think we've done it. That said, I'm happy that we will have this celebration in June, and I'll be able to honor both of them. CB4, of course, will be invited to this event. It's being organized locally in Chelsea, and we're working on it as we speak.
Thank you, Pamela. JD.
Yeah, Ed Kirkland was a maniac. He was a total maniac. He was a real maniac. He was raised in Maine, and he had that accent. His father was a professor at Bodine College in Maine, and Ed went to Dartmouth, and he actually studied French. He taught French at Williams College before he came here. And as Christine Borte will know, he used to speak French with a Maine accent. He was a genteel man. He was a gentleman. He had a sense of humor, and he got along with everybody. He got along with everybody. I think that's what I miss most about Ed, his sense of humor and his kindness, his devotion to the board, but the way he got along with even people in Hell's Kitchen. Although he did a lot for Chelsea, he actually did a lot for us too. He came up and he looked at all our streets, all our buildings to try to get a historic district up here. And I remember it was March, it was cold as hell. And Ed had a little cotton button-down shirt. That's all he wore. It's like he was a grad student still at Dartmouth. He always wore that shirt. He was very brave. He was also a prisoner of war in World War II. And I think the Germans let him go because of his accent. They just couldn't understand him at all. That's what he used to say. He's a great guy. I miss Ed. I miss Ed very much. And Pamela, I think most of us are, as sad as we are, we're made a little relieved from our sadness by your care for Ed. It meant a lot to all of us.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you, JD. Bert?
Yes, I want to thank you, family. When I would
Thanks,
see
Bert.
you and Ed sometimes on the street, coming to the Chelsea Waterside Park picnic, I think what David said, community. I mean, I was struck both personally and community-wise. And when I joined the board and Ed was there, maniac, I think that's what the word you used, JD, maniac. I was like afraid of him. I mean, he was passionate, maniacal, and I was afraid of him. And everybody sort of deferred. Oh, he like a parliamentarian. He knew where to put the commas. Who cared? But he did, you know. And people, Ed, what do you think? You know. I also want to say something about Bob. That Bob was on the board, maybe a little quieter than Ed, but particularly in Chelsea, you know, we have this huge park on the 59th Street, whole west side, State Park. But before there was even the State Park, Bob was pushing for a little park, Chelsea Waterside Park, 23rd Street, 11th Avenue, one side of the, pardon the expression, elevated highway, and the other side of the elevated highway. Some of you may not be old enough to remember, we used to have an elevated highway for cars on the west side. And Bob pushed for it. And it was the only park, someone can correct me, but the only park that I'm aware of in New York City currently where buildings were torn down. They were like warehouses that were used for the docks, but they weren't used anymore. They were taxi garages. They were torn down to make a park. And Bob and Doris Corrigan, who was the district leader at the time, fought very strongly for that park on both sides. And then the greater park, and it was Chelsea Waterside was incorporated, but it was the first one, and he fought for it and started the organization. And
Thank you, Bert.
he was wonderful. I'm stopping, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'm getting
Bert.
a little warm.
Dolores?
I just wanted to note also about Ed is his leadership in landmarks and landmarking and how important that was for setting a precedent for this board to be a leader in that area. We continue to be because of that legacy. But Bert, thank you for talking a little bit about Bob. I disagree with you. Bob was not quiet. As co-chair of Waterfront Parks and Environment with Bob on that committee. Bob advocated so strongly for parks, especially was very passionate about Hudson River Park, and a lot of the work that we have gotten done as a board comes from the advocacy. So we've lost two legends. Two people who have really created a standard for what we now have as a board. And I appreciate so much, Pam, that you are not only being here to bring about their memory and recognize them publicly, but also that, Jeffrey, that you've taken the time to ensure that those who may not have been touched directly by these two great members of our community have a little bit of sense of the legacy that they have given all of us. So thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Dolores. There's two final.
Thank you, Dolores.
Oh, sorry, Pamela. Ed caught my attention when I was a lowly staffer who liked politics and government because he called the chair out on the order of operations that a motion had been made and it wasn't properly entertained. And then, you know, right before Bob died, at Chelsea Waterside Park, we had a groundbreaking to finally install bathrooms, comfort stations. And Bob, for 30 plus years, was talking about bathrooms. And those are gonna come to life a year and a half from now, and maybe there'll be a plaque. I think we know folks at Hudson River Park who can make that happen. So thank you everybody for sharing the memories and allowing us to have this moment this evening. It was significant. So Continuing on with another
Thank you,
unfortunate
Jeffrey.
somber. Thank you, Pamela, and thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. You know, this was also acknowledged earlier this evening. Our city has been dealing with a lot the past month, including the deaths most recently of officers Wilbert Mora and Jason Rivera, and just want to express our sincere condolences and sympathies to their families and to the NYPD on the whole. These issues are difficult for the entire city. So just taking a moment to acknowledge that situation as well. On small meetings and ongoing working groups, as you've heard us report on, the Port Authority Bus Terminal Replacement Working Group meetings are ongoing. Likewise, on our other major transportation hub in the district, you've heard of this place, Penn Station, the Area Civic and Land Use Project Working Group around there. Some formalities have taken place, and that group is going to be continuing its work to pay attention a whole lot. Significant news came out of the city this week that the Department of City Planning is not accepting the state's proposal to do what it's proposed to do in the area. So we now have to figure out how to manage that, and we'll be charting a path accordingly. On small meetings, Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use met with the landmarks preservationist Tony Robbins about the future of a potential Hell's Kitchen Landmarks District. And also we had meetings with the owners of 343 West 47th Street and are working with the agencies regarding 412 West 46th Street. These are issues of demolition. The HHHS had a meeting with Councilmember Botcher's office to find a permanent, to determine and figure out how we can come up with a permanent solution for affordable housing at the Longacre Aladdin Hotel on 317 West 45th Street. And then finally, I want to let folks know Sarah Appleton, who many have come to know as one of our colleagues and board members, is stepping down from the board. I had the pleasure of working with her on committees, and it's going to be a loss that she has to leave the board. I'm not sure if Sarah's here. She is. Sarah, go ahead.
Around. There's just a lot of squares.
Thank you for all your work, and it's been great having you on the board.
Yeah, and just, I mean, some folks are already aware of the reason behind this, but you know, the reason is that I've recently joined Amtrak to actually work on Penn Station projects, and Amtrak policy does not allow for any board membership. So I'm sad to be going, but very much looking forward to continuing to be engaged with folks from this board in my new capacity, and looking forward to still being a member of the sanitation working group as a non-voting public member going forward. And, you know, just want to, again, express how much of a pleasure it was to work with everyone on this board and get to know folks, albeit mostly virtually, and looking forward to seeing all the great things that you all will continue to do.
Really appreciate it, Sarah, and look forward to engaging with you on the Amtrak side as well, for sure. Thank you. That concludes my report. So, gosh, into the business portion of the meeting we go. And we're going to dive in straight away to the issues that came up first on our public session. I'm going to pass it over to Bert and Frank from BLP to take us through items 1 through 7.
Okay, items 1 through 7, we have all in front of us. What we'd like to do is take out item 1, surprise, item 2, surprise, and bundle 3 to 7. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions on items 3 through 7? Okay, go ahead, Bert.
Okay. Item number 1 is the 43rd Street application, doing business as the Purple Tongue. We, BLP is the we voted for a denial of the application. And I just want to say something. This is very unusual for a committee to come out with a full denial, because we usually have, as you're aware, denial unless, and we could not come to any agreement with the applicants. We could come to no agreement with the applicants, because when we say deny unless these stipulations are met, the applicants sign off on those stipulations. We could not come to any agreement. We do have in the letter, if you go, it's this end of the second page of the letter, we, cover our behinds by saying to the SLA, we deny. But if you're foolish enough to accept this application, these are the stipulations that we would like. And these are the stipulations that we threw out, and the applicant was nowhere near discussing them or wanted to discuss them. And that's the way.
You're on, Bert, you just went on mute.
That mouse just keeps wandering around. If there's any questions, I'm willing to take Frank, and if any other committee member.
Yeah, Bert, before we get into questions.
Want to get background?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a little more. At the BLP meeting, there was unanimous opposition to the application from the residents who spoke, and there were at least 25 people who submitted things or spoke in person, and that included the official position of the Manhattan Plaza Tenants Association, and as you heard tonight, the West 43rd Street Block Association, which essentially represents the other side of the block. This place had been previously licensed with a beer and wine license, but the place closed at midnight and only had background music. And my sense of the residents and of the BLP committee was that if the applicant had agreed to that, we would have recommended approval with those stipulations. But as Bert said, we just couldn't come to an agreement on that. The applicant made some concessions on limiting music, but not on the key issue of the midnight close. After the BLP meeting, the applicant submitted a letter to the board office, as well as petitions of support, and asked that those be distributed to the full board. Jesse explained to the applicant that that is not the procedure to give that kind of source material to the full board, but that I would summarize it. So they did get petitions of support. Interestingly, for earlier closing hours than they were willing to agree to us. The petitions talk about them closing at 1 a.m. on Sunday to Wednesday and 2 a.m. the other nights of the week. But again, that is a far cry from the midnight that the public wants. They had 7 business owners who signed the petition, including Little Pie Company, which is in the same stretch of Manhattan Plaza, and 45 individual signatures in support, including 9 people who live in Manhattan Plaza. The letter basically urges the full board to reject the BLP recommendation, saying things like the residents were swayed before the BLP meeting by a lot of rumors and falsehoods about what the operation was going to be. They defend their notice to the community. They note that they've made concessions. They say the soundproofing is adequate, and also that the rationale for the committee's denial was that we were afraid of a full liquor license on that. They basically say they're going to go to the SLA. The SLA will definitely give them this license, but they would like the community board support. I can respond to any of that if you want to hear it. And I do propose amending our letter to reflect that they got some support after BLP, but before the full board vote. But in my mind, it came down to one thing. Everyone who spoke, the community, did not want any kind of a license here after midnight. It didn't have anything to do with notice or anything. The community came out. They said a license after midnight is intolerable, and the applicant told us they could not operate and close that early. So we're at an impasse, and with that, the BLP committee made the recommendation you see to recommend denial outright.
Thank you, Frank. If folks could use the raise hand function, please. And just for the members of the public, this is the business portion of the meeting, and so it's only a discussion of the board. Questions from the board on this item? Okay, if there's no questions, we will move to item 2, please. Mike, is your hand up for this item or the?
Yeah. I go slow on the draw there.
Okay.
So Frank, are you telling us that you are indeed going to amend this letter to reflect what happened tonight?
I'm not sure what you mean. The letter currently says at lines 35 and 36, notably no members of the public spoke or made written submissions in support. What I intend to add is something that says subsequent to the BLP meeting but before the full board meeting, the applicant submitted the petitions with, approximately 47 individuals in support and 9 businesses in support.
Okay, so it's an amended letter. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Josephine, is the question on this letter?
No.
Okay.
Letter
Roberta, is the
2.
question on this letter?
Yeah.
Okay, on this letter, go ahead.
Sure. I heard speakers in the public session, I believe affiliates of the party who was proposing the business, stating that there were portions of the letter that were either incorrect or misrepresentative of the sort of facts associated with the business. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, that particular comment.
I basically summarized the letter they sent and covered the issues. I think what they may be referring to is that the community initially was under the impression that they were applying for a full liquor license, when in fact they're only looking for beer and wine, and that's what got them all up in arms. Right. However, the reason the community got under that impression was that the signage the applicant put up they initially said they were looking for a full liquor license. And as late as the night of the BLP meeting, they had signs up saying they were going to be offering cocktails. So I would say, to the extent this misimpression came about, it came about because of the signs they initially put up. And the other thing, I guess, is there was discussion about, they were upfront telling us they were ultimately going to look for a full on-premise license, so go from a beer to wine to full on-presence. And there was concerns about that. And I think the applicant may believe that the committee vote was actually about, the fear of a full liquor license. But at least in my mind, and other people can speak to this, my vote was based on the fact that the community did not want any kind of license, including a beer and wine license, after midnight in this location. So I think those were the 2 big points they were talking about.
Yeah, my vote was not based on something in the future. My vote was based on what was in front of me at the time. And at the time they were asking for 3 a.m. and the community was saying 12, which is what the previous establishment had, a 12 a.m. closing.
Thanks for that. Carrie, is your question on this letter?
Just a response as a member of BLP who voted to deny. I think it's important to understand where this location is in comparison to the Manhattan Plaza. It is really right there. Like there's somebody whose balcony will sit like right on top of this. So it is really in a residential spot. And we tried very hard to get the applicant to close earlier because that's what the community asked for, and they were just simply unwilling. So I just wanted to echo what Bert and Frank said, and that is also why I voted to deny.
Okay. Final call for questions on item 1, the application for an establishment at 43rd Street. Okay, moving on to item 2, Bert, Frank.
Okay, item 2. The Gadfly Lounge. Now, this came before us the last meeting, but it also had come before us way back when, I think it might have been May. And at that time, we had the same reaction with the same stipulations. But the committee said there was still some outstanding Department of Building issues. And we said we don't want to have a full vote until those issues were resolved. And we withheld that. And actually, when there was a hearing and Frank was present, at least by video, at the hearing, I wasn't. The SLA said those issues are now resolved, but we're not going to make a ruling until we hear from the community board. And so this is our now letter that we discussed, and it's our basic denial with these stipulations. And as you can see, the stipulations, not only in addition to the hours did the applicant change, they said no live music later than 10 p.m. and that live music, no more than 3 people, only acoustic, no amplification, no DJs, no karaoke, only background music, no use of the rear yard, no music or amplified sound in the outdoor spaces, implement of an acoustical report, which was in May of 21. The Department of Buildings issue was this space, which had previously been occupied by, and I will say it, a problematic establishment that eventually was closed. And I think somebody was using their 1 minute to talk about their previous 3 years. And I want to be clear that they were talking about the prior establishment, not the applicant who's coming before us tonight. Okay, so that space had been originally 2 retail establishments. The wall between had been torn down and created one larger space. That was the issue, and that's been resolved in terms of building, Department of Building. And the vote, I want to say at the committee level, was 7 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you for that, Bert. So just 7 in favor, 1 opposed to deny unless with the stipulations that you've outlined.
Exactly.
So before we jump into discussion, I just want to say if folks vote to approve this letter, they would be voting to not deny unless codifying the stipulations that the committee worked through. Leslie.
I have a question and a comment, Jeffrey. A question. So this was a deny unless going against the Block Association and the Council of Chelsea Block. Sorry.
That is correct. Well, I should say I was the one person who voted against this because of the strong community opposition. I will say the stipulations the applicant was willing to agree to were extraordinary. I mean, as you just heard, we couldn't get the prior applicant to close at midnight. These people agreed to close at 11 and 12. They initially came in wanting to be open much later. So I think the committee was really swayed by the applicants willing to work with us, and also their general sort of demeanor and presentation. They seemed like sort of earnest, well-meaning operators. My vote at the committee was very close because I do think the stipulations are strong. And, you know, I think if I were at the committee today, I would probably vote in favor of the application with the stipulations. And I think that's how I'm going to vote tonight. So I would change the 1 negative vote at the BLP committee. Again, it's basically the strength of the stipulations and, you know, how it really hems in the operator. I should add that since the BLP meeting, and the operator said this in the comments, they've gotten, you know, 200 or 300 letters of support, including letters of support from, you know, actual tenants in this building. This is a residential building, and I've seen at least 5 letters, and I think tonight said they got letters of support from half the residents. And to me, that sort of, you know, says something as well about that that the immediate block may not be as unified in opposition as it may seem by the positions of the block associations.
Okay, well then I just have a few comments on this because I've been following this back and forth through the block associations and the Council of Block Associations, and I'm getting a million texts on it. Number one, there was I think what was bothersome to me, there was a sign put up, and as earnest as the owners sound, there was a sign put up recently calling out the Block Association president, calling out the Block Association. I thought it was it made me very uneasy. And I think it might be a foreshadowing of things to come. I don't know. It didn't seem like it was in the spirit of a kind and, you know, gentle negotiation, number one. Number two, I think we should give the weight of the Council of Chelsea Block Associations. I think it should be weighed very, very heavily. That they said no, in addition to the Block Association. And also, on a philosophical point, there are so many bars and restaurants in that area. There's so many liquor licenses, and we keep saying, well, we want to support small businesses. The small businesses we need to support, or we need to support all small businesses, but especially the businesses that sell stuff, the mom and pop, like the things that sell, baby clothes or sneakers or that. And it just keeps getting all those keep getting pushed out. And then we see another bar, and then we see another liquor license come in.
Thank you, Leslie. I want to keep moving.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Jeffrey, if I can just respond to the two things
Sure,
on that.
Frank.
One,
Sure.
I agree with Leslie completely about the sign. The wording was bad. Putting, a neighborhood resident's name in the sign was bad. Bert and I spoke to the applicant immediately about it when we heard about it. And my understanding is they changed it immediately. This was put up right after the SLA hearing, and the SLA hearing was quite tense. Things were pretty hostile on both sides, the Block Association and the lawyer for the applicant. So I think it was a time when emotions were running high. The other thing is, as you've heard, this location was previously licensed with a full liquor license as a restaurant. And one thing we've heard from the SLA is, if something's been a bar or restaurant before, the community should be concerned about getting the best possible operator, because it is likely going to continue to be a bar and a restaurant.
And I would also add that right next door, I don't remember now the numbers, either 1 or 2, there are 2 small retail establishments right next door. I think one is vacant right now.
Thank you, guys.
Alan?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Years ago, we had the Quality of Life Committee. And over the years, we dealt with a lot of the resident neighborhood bar and restaurant complaints. And what struck me about this site is that it's very similar to some of the buildings that we dealt with. I believe there's a staircase that starts from the sidewalk, goes above the restaurant and goes into the lobby on the 2nd floor. And a lot of the complaints that we got at Quality of Life were people hanging out, people smoking, drinking on the stoop, and causing the residents there for problems. And even when they had security on the street, still had complaints. I don't think this site lends itself to this type of a business. The fact that there was a one license there doesn't give it any historical significance, that it was continuous licensing. The previous licensee, I don't think, made it through a renewal. So I just think the physicality of the site is a problem. Thank you.
Okay. Jeffrey, sorry to keep interrupting, but Alan, at the SLA, the landlord showed up at the hearing and told the SLA they'd be willing to put up whatever kind of gate or things around the steps to keep any loitering from going on the residential building steps.
Thanks, Frank. Josephine?
I just want to follow up on a concern that one of the callers had when the bar closes. So does the owner have any responsibility to help sort of move patrons along after the bar has closed, or they just shut their doors and then whatever happens, if people hang out for an hour or 2 after that, it's just New York?
I believe they have, obviously the customers can't leave with liquor or anything like that. I believe the operator's legal obligation ends when the people leave, so long as they haven't been overserved. Often people have, security guards to try to get people to move along. And the applicant possibly would be willing to do that if that was important to us. But again, it's a public sidewalk, and there's, limited things that anyone can do if people are determined to stay there.
Okay, so there has been a precedence for asking for security, is what you're saying?
Yeah, usually in bigger places, with sort of capacity of say 200 or more.
Got it.
But yes, places we have asked for security, or a lot of applicants have volunteered to have security.
Thank you.
Hector?
I actually live 2 blocks away from the location, and I've passed by the area several times, and I'm pretty familiar with the setup there. I do remember, you know, as most of you, when they first approached us about this liquor license and the opening of the business quite a while ago, and it sounds to me like they've pretty much acquiesced to all the demands and requirements that we've asked for, you know, including concerns of the public. And it sounds like they're trying to be a good neighbor. So honestly, I'd probably vote for the business to open it, even though I don't even know them, or, you know, I just know that they're in the neighborhood. And I do realize there's a lot of bars in the area, but it seems like they're trying to be good neighbors, you know, at the get-go here, and being pretty cooperative here. So I don't know, I have a good feeling about it. So, you know, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Thanks, Hector. Christine, and then I want a summary from the co-chairs, and we're going to move on. Christine?
Yes, I want to follow up on what Alan Oster said. When a few years back, the problem with Pierre Loti were just horrible. And we spent, the ACES committee, including myself, spent hours trying to resolve that situation. So I think everybody's probably traumatized by that. A point that someone made was that the people were loitering. Oh, Alan said people were loitering on the stairs and probably, you know, go and want to smoke on the stairs. So I don't know whether that's the right time, but I'd love to propose a friendly amendment that we make a stipulation that the stairs be roped off in some way, that they can be only used as stairs and not as sitting area. And I think if adding that stipulation may help a lot in reducing the risk of the setup going to becoming a nuisance for the neighbors.
Well,
I don't know what you think about Frank.
As Frank reported, the landlord has said he will gate up the stairs.
I don't think it's an issue of gating, because I think it's the people which are in the restaurants who go out and sit on the stairs. So they go on the stairs and then they talk loud. And because they are sitting on the stairs, they stay there for a much longer time than you would do that otherwise.
We're talking about different stairs, I think. The stairs I'm referring to, and I think Frank and the landlord, since they were, if you can imagine this, there were 2 original retail operations, 2 small stores or whatever originally, on either side of the entrance stairs, like a stoop, going up to the entrance of the apartment house. And the landlord is saying he will gate up those stairs, which are the, I don't know how many.
But by
stairs.
gate up, you mean prevent people from outside to go in, right? What I'm saying is that the problem is the people inside sitting on those stairs.
Well, this is not entrance to the restaurant. This is the stairs to the apartment house.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So two things, Christine. The entrance to the restaurant is sort of to the right of the stairs. You don't go up the stairs.
I get it. Sorry.
I'm okay with adding that, but I think we have to say, to the extent permitted by law, because I live on the block with New Dramatists that has a huge problem with people sitting on their stairs. And because they have residential, not really residential units, but units that people can live in, they've had huge problems with the Department of Buildings and figuring out what kind of blockage of the stairs is actually allowed.
Okay. All right,
But I think we
get
can
it.
certainly say, because the landlord was willing to do it. So, you know, given that they said that, and I'm sure the applicant's okay with adding that kind of stip, as long as we make clear, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
it has
that would
to be
be
permissible by law.
That would be fine with me. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah.
Okay. Bert, so just to, I think the vote would be to deny unless, outlining a series of stipulations that you guys have negotiated over the many months we've been hearing about this application. The DOB issue has been resolved.
Yes. And with the addition of Christine's language about whatever, however it's legal.
To put some sort of rope along the steps.
That would be something new that we're adding.
Well, to gate it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeffrey, I've said basically everything I'm going to say. The one thing I will mention that people have heard from me before. If this applicant gets denied by the SLA, the landlord is going to have to rent the space again. We'd all love, for a shoe repair place and a small, gift shop to go in, and that may happen. My sense is that the landlord's going to look for another liquor serving establishment, and that next applicant may not be willing to agree to the kind of stipulations and hours this applicant did. And, you don't know what the SLA is going to do. So you sort of have to think about what could happen down the road, depending on what branch we take with our vote.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank. And just as is customary, folks, this will be done, we'll do voting at the end, a roll call at the end, and everybody will fill out their vote sheet as well. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Bert. And thank you to the board for the discussion. Clinton Hell's Kitchen land use, Mr. Noland.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have 3 letters about 4 buildings on 3 different streets. I know you've all seen this all before. It's the Clinton Special District, and we're always worried about losing our buildings through owner neglect. 2 of the buildings on 46th Street have been let go, very neglected. There's a threat of them being demolished, and we are writing to DOB and HPD to prevent that. The building on 48th Street is a new owner, and we're writing to them to meet with them and saying you cannot demolish this building. And the 3rd building on 47th Street has already been illegally half demolished, and we are writing to protest that and to meet with the owner to get that building restored. I want to give full credit to Joe Restuccia and CHDC staff, Savannah Wu, for drafting these letters, these very complex letters, telling us about the Clinton Special District, about the history of these buildings. I don't think I have to elaborate too much on them. Joe might. Betty McIntosh had some wonderful edits. Betty, we will get to them after this meeting, I promise you. Joe, are you here, Joe? Are you back from the crime scene?
I have returned from the crime scene, yes. Yes. The letters, I think, have a lot of detail. We really have our 3 owners, and it's in the case of both the 47th and 46th Street owners, they are the ones who have created the problems and the conditions and structure in these buildings. We wanted to note that. The letters are also full of references by link to the various DOB violations and conditions to support our thread of argument. On 48th Street, we just needed to remind this owner and call him in for a meeting that his information was not so clear, and that when he bought the building, and that these cannot be demolished, and there's not a lot of air rights attached to them. Any sort of technical questions, I'll certainly, on the committee's behalf, answer.
Marty, and then Twee.
Thank you. I appreciate these letters because they do give a lot of information. And I am also, along with the letter writers, may I say, pissed off at this kind of sort of purposeful demolition. My question, each of the letters says, we will work with you. What does that mean? What does it mean for the community board to work with these people?
But I've come to an...
This
sorry,
is also about, I'm sorry, Joe, I'll turn it over to you. This, Marty, good question. This is also about housing. This is about our housing stock in Hell's Kitchen, our affordable housing stock. So I think what we need to do, what we're trying to do, is get that housing stock, that affordable housing stock back. Joe?
Yeah, I get that. But what does it mean to work with these people who are destroying the housing stock?
Right. So here, this is a good example. The community board frequently has to work with probably some of the worst people in the world. Our goal is to bring those owners, in the case specifically like these, through a process to say, you must comply, here's what has to be done with your building. And if you don't, we will step up the enforcement even more. So for example, two of the owners have made the pitch. The buildings are too far gone to be preserved. We have been through the process before of working either with HPD through the emergency repair program or working with DOB on how to, if you remember, we had 22nd Street and 10th Avenue, where we tried to preserve the facade after the legal demolition started. And that arrangement was not the best, but it got most of the building exterior preserved. And then the thing was added on to. Not the best example. But in other cases, we've been able to preserve the entire building. To know, Marty, that when there's a full renovation or reconstruction, it is not going to command the stratospheric rents that you would in new construction. It's not perfect at all, but it also means that the district is held whole and doesn't create yet another precedent for someone to go down the road. It's a very hard job to do this, and I'm going to just let you and everybody else know. I would expect this is going to take months of work with the board to work with DOB and HPD to try to restore these buildings.
So I really appreciate the important spirit that your response gives, but the two or three words in each of these letters that says we will work with you, there may have to be another way to find out how to say that because it feels empty to me.
Well, we have incredible lawbreakers, and we're trying to get them back to actually being zoning compliant. You have to, and one of them has already agreed to come to the table, so that's very good. They made that commitment in the public Clinton Housing Land Use Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee meeting. So, and I would say from the committee members who were there, I don't think anybody was quiet or just happy with them. We were all rather to the point on their bad performance.
Thanks, Marty. Twee.
I'm going to go in the order of the document number, document 8, which is 47th Street. Sort of to Marty's points, on line 158, I'm just really highlighting the highlighted parts. It says MCB4 is pleased to, you have agreed to meet on X date. So is that a date that's going to be filled in that you know already, or it's still
Yes,
up in the air?
we had a meeting with them. We had to change the date. It was already scheduled.
So what is that date?
Jesse would be able to tell you.
Yeah, the meeting was scheduled. We had to be rescheduled today, Twee. So that's why that's probably left marked. We are hopefully going to confirm that the meeting will happen on Friday. So we can certainly put that date in going forward.
Okay, thank you. The other in document 9, West 46th Street, it's just highlighting commissioners carrying an XXX. We don't know who that commissioner is yet of DOB.
No, there is no DOB commissioner yet. That's the problem. So we might just end up sending this to Commissioner Department of Buildings, because we have to get it out.
Okay. And the document 10, which is 48th Street, it's the same idea. The whole addressed to person is highlighted as if that's not finalized.
No, sorry, that's my error. That is the person. I apologize.
And 5 occupied building, 60 apartments, is that finalized?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. And commercial observer, was that highlighted? This is
no,
on.
those are deleted. I'm sorry. In the final version, I deleted. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Well, also thank all of you, because these were a bear to get the research done on. So really appreciate everyone reading it very carefully.
Thank you, Twee. Any final questions for Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use on these 3 letters? Okay. ACES, the item was sent back to committee. So over to Paul and Betty at Chelsea Land Use.
Terrific. I'm going to take items 12 and 14. Betty's going to take item 13. On item 12, we had an applicant at 442 West 22nd Street. We had previously issued a certificate of LPC had previously issued a certificate of appropriateness for a rear facade and other work on the building. The building was sold. The new owners came in and wanted to do a different rear facade. We met with them a number of times to see their first iteration and then the final iteration. The proposal as brought to us addressed some of our major concerns about bulk and light and air coming into what we call the donut hole, the rear yards of these buildings mid-block. And so we had agreed to do approval with conditions. First condition would be that the third and fourth rear setback would conform with the previously approved third and fourth floor lines, and that the new plan had a canopy at the top on the fourth floor, a canopy over the roof deck, and we felt that was inappropriate. So we were asking to have that removed. Any questions on item 12? Great, Betty?
Okay. Item 13 is a rooftop addition at 428 West 20th Street. This is in the Chelsea Historic District. This 4-story building was built in 1857, and the proposal is for an addition over the 4th floor to create a duplex combining the 4th and the 5th floors. The building had a mock-up on the roof, you know, one of these orange net things, and you could see that it was visible from West 20th Street. So the committee voted to deny the proposal unless several changes were made. That none of the addition would be visible from West 20th Street except for a chimney, that the dormer be removed, which was the most visible element. The front, the north-facing part, would be moved back 1 foot to prevent the addition being visible, and that any and all existing LPC violations are cleared. Any questions?
Mr. Noble.
Yeah, so how did the applicants respond to that, Betty?
I don't know. We just made the vote and that was it.
So they're unaware of what we want, in other words.
They know what we want because they were represented at the meeting.
I know that, but you know, much like some of these other applicants who come forward, and we get stipulations and that sort of thing, how was it left? Where the representative went back to the owners, right? Wasn't it sort of open?
No, it
Am I
was
right?
what this was our vote, and we did not discuss it afterwards with them. Because this is what the decision was of the committee.
Yeah, I know, what I'm trying to get a feel for, and let everybody else know, was what was their feeling with respect to our feelings? You know?
Well, we did not ask them about their feelings about this.
Yeah,
I don't recall, unless, Paul, do you remember them saying?
No, what I recall from the meeting was that we were going to do an outright. This was a very controversial discussion because there are very viewpoints on how to protect the donut hole and whether vertical extensions and interior design and bulk massing and lighting and air all came into play. And we had sort of a very challenging time reaching an agreement with the committee. And we asked the applicant if they would consider our recommendations and go back and then come back to us. And they said they couldn't really do that. And so we said, all right, we're going to make the statement that we're going to deny this. Here are the stipulations we want. If you can present to LPC that you can meet these conditions, then LPC will look at our letter and say, all right, we deny it unless these stipulations are in place, much like we do with BLP. So the representative of the owner could not indicate at that meeting how he thought the owner would react to the recommendations. And we have not heard from the owner since that meeting.
Right. So that's what I'm trying to get out in the open here. We took a couple of votes on this, as I recall, right?
We finally got to an approach.
No, we did indeed. But what I'm saying is it's, as far as the owner's concerned, it's up in the air with respect to their final decisions, right? I just want people to know, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make an example of this particular applicant with respect to facadism, right? Is that not
I'm not sure. I don't think facadism
You don't think
was in
this?
this particular proposal. That wasn't an issue. It was an issue of visibility.
Visibility,
and-
okay.
and putting something on the roof.
Exactly. Well, you're right. I misspoke because it's in the same vein, right? Same vein. It's one of
Not
those
really.
ambiguous. It's one of well, maybe to you, but to me it is.
Like I want to put a close to this. So
Okay.
is there anything?
I'm just letting you know. It was
Thank
not
you.
easy.
Nope, we appreciate it. Makes sense. Glad to have it aired. Roberta?
It seems like for item 13, the resolution it suggests that this addition would be for the creation of an additional residential unit. Is that correct? Or could you clarify?
I don't think it would be another residential unit. It would be a duplex with, a bedroom. And the bedroom would be on the 5th floor. It's not like it has a kitchen and a living room and everything.
Okay, so it would not increase any units at all. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for those questions. Let's see, that was item 13. Back to you, Paul, for number 14.
Item 14, this was on the Gansport Market location. Many of you recall at the intersection of 14th Street and 9th Avenue, there's an 1840s series of row houses, and the applicant had come before us previously to put an office tower in the rear yard of these row houses, and it was a very controversial community issue. The building itself, once they started soft demolition, the rear walls, support walls of the facade were in worse condition than they had anticipated. The Department of Buildings was called in. They declared an emergency situation for public safety concerns and declared that the entire facades of the row houses had to be taken down. Because of that process, LPC requires an amendment to the certificate of appropriateness that they were issued. And so rather than restoring the facade in place, they have to reconstruct the facade. And so that was the technical reason for coming in for an amendment to the certificate of appropriateness. Because this was such a devastating situation in the community last year, there was a lot of conversation. I honestly felt like I was at a BLP meeting. We went almost till 11 o'clock that night. So I was like, this is why I'm not on BLP. So the discussion went on for quite some time about, do we take a different tack? Do we say that the entire building should be reconsidered, the entire site should be reconsidered? There was much debate about what we should do. And so we ultimately ended up in because we kept it very focused on the certificate of appropriateness was asking for the reconstruction of these bricks on the facade that they had taken off by hand, inventoried, palleted, and stored in order to bring them back. And they have about 50% of the bricks, or 50 to 60% of the bricks are salvageable and reusable. So we ended up reaching a decision that we would support the certificate of appropriateness and ask that they would replace the bricks in any new brick of those 50%, any new bricks goes in a low visibility section, like behind a shutter or under an eave or something like that. And that we also asked, because we felt like this opened up the entire application, to ask for some sort of public area to commemorate the history of these row houses, and maybe have a place where the public could have access to an area within these buildings to celebrate the historic nature of these row houses. So
I would just add that yes, this meeting lasted till 11, and that part of our recommendation was that this space that could be publicly accessible would also include photos of the original buildings and historic signage they discovered when they were dismantling the bricks, that there was this signage that said dentist's office and so on. And it was really very cool, but it really was so damaged that it really couldn't be part of the brick facade. But I think they have recorded this historic signage in photos, so they could have some kind of space that brings back the memory of what was there before.
Any questions? All right, thanks so much, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Betty. To Christine and Dale, Transportation Planning Committee, please.
Okay, I'm going to take this. We have 4 letters, 15 to 18. Street co-naming of 42nd Street between Dyer and 10th is James Houghton Way. 16, supporting through running strategies for Penn Station. 17, a letter to City Council about ultra-fast grocer industry, urging legislation to rein in their abuses. And 18, a follow-up letter by our shed slayer, Sarah, about the Department of Buildings to seek more action on long-standing sheds. And I should say that Jesse substantially drafted 17, so we thank Jesse. Do we have any questions?
Twee?
Wait, I have a question.
Jesse, we're going to start with Jesse.
Let's clarify.
Oh, Jesse Greenwald.
There we go.
Oh, sorry.
Not Jesse Bodine, another Jesse on our board.
Not Jesse, a new member of the Transportation Planning Committee who stepped up to write a very compelling letter about the ultra-fast grocer industry. Any of you read it?
Oh, I thought Jesse Greenwood wanted to speak. Okay. For 16, the budget, the through running, I made notes on it, through running concept. I was really impressed with the letter because when I was reading through it, I was thinking, well, what about examples? And you came up with examples, but I'm not quite sure of how through running really works. I mean, I know sometimes the MTA will have one side open up to let people out, then close those doors on the other side, let people in. Is that through running, or is it just you just go through the station and it's not like it's a depot and it leaves empty, right?
Well, there were a number of proposals that we reviewed at the committee that had various approaches to through running, but in essence, it is treating Penn Station less like a terminal and more like a stop. And it would mean, in some sense, reorganizing service between essentially New Jersey and Long Island. For instance, a Long Island Railroad train might drop off passengers at Penn Station and then carry on to a New Jersey destination. And this would preclude the necessity for a lot of yardage and turnaround at the Penn Station facility. That's an example.
Yeah, but then you also mentioned potentially widening the tracks, I think. And it seems as though this would require some sort of budget reassessment on their part or some sort of like monetary proposal.
One of the overriding issues in the need to widen the tracks would be the existence of the stadium, whose supports preclude a lot of structural changes below.
But
So
I can just clarify that there
Yeah.
if you want. That the widening of the platform is that because each track is way more productive, right? It takes, let's say, 12 trains instead of 3. You really need less tracks. So now you can have more wider platform. And the wider platform obviously would be part of the budget.
Okay, that wasn't really clear in terms of the letter. Are you saying to them, try to refigure your budget to widen tracks?
No, we're not saying figure your budget because they don't have a budget right now.
Oh,
So
okay.
they have to come back and create a budget for any of the options they are going to bring up.
Okay, I had a comment for 17 as well. The minutes, the urban, what's it called? Urban ultra fast grocer. When I read it, I think just want to make a slight comment of minutes, like you say, they promise 15 minutes or in the moment, and I would just put minutes first. Otherwise it looks as though it were a typo or a duplicate. So I would say within minutes, comma, 15 minutes, or in the moment reads a lot better.
Okay.
And then for 18, similar to what I saw for Chelsea Hell's Kitchen land use, maybe potential pictures to recommend as sidewalk sheds as examples could be added to the letter. I mean, I know that there's one on Chelsea that I find really pretty.
I think Oh, examples of the different type designs.
Yeah, designs that we would
Yeah.
request or recommend.
Yeah, there is a newer design out there that's much better for pedestrian clearances. Do we point to that directly, or do we want to avoid?
Well, I think we need to be careful because
Yeah.
the new design is way, way more expensive.
Yeah.
So what we are asking is somewhere in between, just raising the bars, which would cost nearly nothing, but would make a big difference.
Well,
And I don't know that we have examples of that.
We also don't want to look like we're endorsing a specific vendor, like the specific provider of that, the pretty, the better sheds.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chui. Are there other questions?
Yes, Bert and then Betty. Bert?
Okay.
I think I got an answer to my question, but it was unclear. I think it's a very good letter. And it was unclear for me about what do you mean by platform widening? Because the tracks, you can only have a certain kind of train, the size of the train, so that determines, you know, the gauge of the track and then the platform. But you're really saying, and it's not clear in the letter, and I think it would be helpful to make it explicit, that you're talking about platform widening because you're going to have less tracks in the space that exists now.
We could add language to that effect, like it is
Let
generally.
me finish. I'm sorry, Dale, because it was really unclear. So I was
Yeah,
trying
right.
to envision, how do you expand the platforms? Because the trains are not going to get skinnier. It's the same train, right?
Yeah,
So
we'll
you're talking
fix
about
that.
You need less tracks, less trackage, more platform space.
We'll fix that.
Okay, that I would find that helpful. And then when you list the benefits of through running, one of the major benefits that I see for through running, you don't list, which I'm calling that greater regional connectivity, where you have a train going from Princeton to New Haven without changing trains, or someone being able to do that, or going from Ronkonkoma to, you know.
Yeah.
Caucus.
Okay.
We'll ask that. We'll
Okay.
ask that.
Otherwise, I think it's really good. Thanks.
Yeah, we can
Thanks,
say, and I
Yeah,
know
don't worry about it.
we also had some minor corrections from Betty as well that we'll incorporate.
And Ms. McIntosh is next on deck. So Betty?
Yeah, this isn't a minor editing question. Can through running be accomplished with Madison Square Garden in its present location?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Betty, we love those yes and no questions. Tina?
Can I comment on 17? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think one of the things that really concerns me, and I think it was maybe inadvertently left out because I mentioned it at the meeting, is you know, when DoorDash has their bicycle, anyway, the people that ride the bicycle, you know, they're going to be crossing in and out of the sidewalk. The more they go to pick up the packages and leave, the better for DoorDash. Not so good for pedestrians, people that have children. We have a blind population that's pretty prevalent because of you know, the residents on 23rd Street. So I am really concerned about the use of public sidewalks and the danger that and inconvenience that may ensue. Someone, go ahead.
Well, we also, this letter is to the, we can include some language about you know, pedestrian safety and in the letter to the legislation. But we also have an admin letter that's going specifically to DoorDash, where we should definitely include those that concern about the sidewalk crossings.
Yeah, I think it's very significant because that really impinges on the community and safety. One thing that someone had recommended on 25th Street dealing with the BRC was not related quite to this situation, but she had mentioned that maybe we should ask for permits why don't these businesses pay for the use of the sidewalk and get a permit and have to pay for that permit? So that's just an idea that someone came up with related to bars and that sort of thing. But I thought, hey, that's not a bad idea.
Dale, let me, I think this is a pretty good idea, but there are so many other businesses which have, first of all, there are parking for bikes on the sidewalk, which are, permitted and which are free. So I don't know how to reconcile these different usages and who pays and doesn't. So I think we need to think about it a little more about how to do that. But I think the point is well taken about highlighting that it is a real inconvenience and a conflict with pedestrians.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Tina. Brad.
Christine, quick question. In the letter about the tracks, this is irrelevant if they relocate MSG, correct?
No, it's not, because if they relocate MSG, it doesn't change that some tracks would be terminated there, and therefore, as long as the tracks are terminated, they go back, and the tracks can handle only 3 trains per hour.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And to clarify, I mean, the removal of MSG would give a lot more options to the transportation, the possibilities for transit below grade, but it doesn't preclude, as it stands, it doesn't preclude any options. Since we are asking Penn State, the Penn project, to consider a wide range of possible through running configurations.
Thank you, Dale.
Okay.
Any more
Thank
questions?
you. I think that's it.
So I think we'll vote on all 4 together then.
Yep, and we'll take them all at the end. Remember, we do a roll call at the end. Perfect. Thank you, Transportation. Housing, Health, and Human Services, Joe and Maria.
Maria has the first one. Maria?
Maria, you're on mute.
I thought I would be over this already. It's been like 2 years. I don't know if you guys can see me. The first letter, Katie, thank you for helping out and writing it. It's basically about the kiosks, the syringe. I'm multitasking here. The syringe kiosk, it would be on Dyer on like 34th or 35th or 36th or 37th. They didn't specify which location Housing Works came. I'm sorry if I didn't include that part.
Actually stayed at West 36th.
West 36th Street. So Housing Works came to basically propose that a kiosk be there, a syringe kiosk. And basically the committee and constituents from the community were against that idea. So the letter is basically saying, I think it needs to be amended. And Katie and I were discussing this a little bit earlier about the letter. I don't know if you've read it, but that it needs to be changed a little bit. Up front, it says we're voting to thank Housing Works for coming to present. When I think it's clearer if we're saying that we're voting against having the kiosk at that location, thanking them for attending, and then the additional things that are in the letter. And that is the gist of it. Any questions? And Katie, I know you're here somewhere. I don't know if you're still.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Actually, I would just say, and I'm sorry if I wasn't being clear earlier, Maria, that the reason I drafted the letter the way I did, thanking them and then mentioning in the letter that the community isn't interested in kiosks at the moment, is because in Housing Works presentation, even though we thought they were going to be proposing a specific kiosk on a specific block, they didn't actually do that in the presentation. He actually said, they have these kiosks, they also do all these other things. He thinks the kiosk could be useful on Dyer, but he really wanted to hear from the community about how else they could help, and they pass out gloves, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he said
Katie,
he was.
Katie, the presentation was only 2 slides. The call to the board and discussion with the board prior was for a kiosk on West 36th and Dyer. That's just factual. The committee, the constituents, the neighbor talked about it. We have to respond to it. That's all.
Right. You just have to be really clear about responding and to what he said at the presentation.
Thanks, Maria.
I had a little bit of trouble hearing, but okay.
So there's a couple of hands up, but you'll indulge my first question. There's a lot of folks report a lot of syringes being on the street, and the committee is rejecting a place for folks to potentially drop them off.
I'm sorry, Jeffrey. The committee had a really robust discussion about this among itself, and it would be, I would rather not have the same discussion at this level, because we really went through it in full about the need for disposal, how things work, programs. So
sure. So I guess I had a yes or no question, and it sounds like the committee landed on no. They do not want a space for needles to be safely disposed of.
Not in that specific one location. There were alternative ideas mentioned that really make more sense, Jeffrey. And I don't know, I don't remember if we put those ideas and suggestions in the letter. I believe we did, but there were other ideas that make more sense. One kiosk on Dyer and 37th is really gonna help. Katie Savage, let me just say, Katie Savage came to committee. She had, you know, that she does this work on a regular basis, volunteering and doing it in the community, right? And she's the one who comes to the meetings, several committee meetings talking about syringes, right? And so she had some ideas, and I thought they were really good ideas. I don't think that that's really gonna, if we're gonna talk about a solution, let's talk about a solution that makes sense.
And what we also got was Housing Works' willingness to work with other organizations in the neighborhood to provide and assist for syringe disposal in a little more holistic way, as opposed to yet again putting a location that most of the committee felt was not ideal or made any sense.
Christine.
So Maria, I'm very happy that you recapped and changed the order. I think I agree with you that it would make it much, much clearer. Just want to mention that the location which was recommended is under lease to HKNA, and therefore cannot be used for that purpose. And because you need an approval also from the Port Authority to do that. So this is not a good thing. And it's right in the middle of the little piece of green that we are trying to generate for the neighborhood. So I don't know that this is a good idea. So I agree with the letter. I think it should be clearer and say that location is not a great idea, and then go from there.
Thanks, Christine. Roberta?
I wanted to articulate, I was on this committee and I'm party to this discussion earlier, and I think that one of the ways that we discussed articulating this was talking about community partners. Housing Works did specifically talk about a singular location, but they were also seeking community partners in order to perform their work. And given both feedback from the public as well as a kind of lack of expertise of members of the board to be those community partners themselves, I think that the decision was to recommend working with other community partners and not the board directly, because I don't think that the board was able to be that partner. And I think that I think that rejecting or opposing kiosks would not be ideal, and certainly not a precedent that we'd want to set in any meaningful sense.
Roberta, are you saying that I'm a little confused?
Sure.
We voted
She's
on
merely
the
commenting
letter.
on the letter, right?
I'm sorry?
I think you merely commented that the letter reflects the discussion that we made, that we had, right?
Yeah. Yes, I would recommend specifically, we talked about how we'd want to phrase specifically what occurred, and I would highly recommend not stating that that we oppose a kiosk. and more so encouraging that the Housing Works work with community partners outside of the board itself in order to site kiosks and work on other disposal methods within the neighborhood. And focusing on that community partnership aspect rather than the kiosks themselves.
We oppose the.
Roberta, but I thought when we were at the committee meeting, that's what we voted on. We actually voted on opposing that. So it should be in the letter. That's not something we wouldn't put in if we voted for it. I mean, we could go back and look at the video, right, for our meeting and see what we actually all voted on. That was part of it.
Okay, and then my sincere apologies for misunderstanding the committee's opposition.
Okay.
Eddie?
Thank you, though.
I think I'm going in the direction that Christine was going in, that and that you intend to go on, that the first part of the letter is going to say that the board was opposed to a particular specific location, which you have stated, and then I think then all the thank yous and the warm fuzzy part comes, and then I guess you could modify it, or maybe not, for it says there's no interest at this time in the installation of new Sharps kiosks. I wasn't really sure that baseline statement was what the committee decided, but if it was, then I guess it was. I guess I didn't pick up on that.
Betty, quick question. Just what number did you read? What number sentence?
It's 30, sentence 30 through 32, basically.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
There's no interest in, I mean, I guess it seemed like a stronger statement than I recalled, but if that's what the committee decided, then that's what they decided.
I just want to note so far, 2 members of this committee are calling into question the resolution of the letter. And there's 2 more questions to go, so we'll take those. And then I have a comment on this letter as well. So Twee is up next.
Hi, Maria, quick comment
Hi.
or question. Sharps, can we please define what other sharps are? Are they like rusty scissors or broken shard bottles? Like, can we at least give examples? Because they just say needles and other sharps. I didn't see it if it's there.
No, it's not. That's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
We should include that. Yeah. Okay. And I know there's somebody else. I think it was Dolores.
Dolores, yep, Dolores, and then we have Rob.
So, Jeffrey, I wanted to directly address what I was hearing as your concern, is that the committee is not recognizing that it is actually a viable solution to be putting these types of receptacles to try to prevent what is really dangerous litter within our communities. And that is a public safety issue. These are things that did come up in committee. Katie did a really wonderful job in being able to recognize that this organization is doing good work. However, the suggestion of putting it in this location, there was not enough comfort, evidence, and real assurity that the users in this particular area would use this receptacle and we would solve the problem in this way. And so the committee very carefully wanted to go ahead and commend that Housing Works is doing this good work. And as Roberta said, that there are really good partners across our entire community that they can work with in trying to prevent this dangerous public safety issue, which are needles in our streets. The box in this location, we did not feel, and most of the public that came did not feel would solve the problem. So we're trying to very delicately in this letter, which Katie did, I think, very well, is to recognize the positive work, but how we don't feel it's a solution in this particular place. But as a board, we want to continue to work with Housing Works to help connect them to other organizations that can do a good job in collectively preventing this dangerous litter from being in our communities.
Rob?
Hey everyone, I used to be an EMT. Sharps are considered any material or any object that someone injects into their body. Sharps is also for women on IVF treatments, diabetics. A lot of people, airports, different stores, they have them in their restrooms for such uses. And there's the occasional people who are doing stuff that, you know, is illegal. But you know what? I'd rather see it, someone stick something in a receptacle than find it on the floor of the street. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. I don't see any new hands. Dolores, Leslie, sorry.
Yes, I remember the conversation that we had, and Dolores is right. I think the concern we had was that the service would be best served if it was in liaison with some of the community organizations rather than with us. That's how I left the meeting and understood and voted on it.
Thank you for that. So if that is, sure, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, just to sort of sum it up, one piece of factual information which we neglected to mention, sharps disposal kiosks are not permitted on the city sidewalks by DOT. So we realized that they came to us, it has to be inside a building line or inside a restroom like was mentioned. So we realized that they were bringing up something, not realizing, they said it's not permitted. They told us that information. So that's why we wanted to say, don't do it. And the answer was, it's on Port Authority property, maybe. And then my response was under HK&A's lease. So there's a whole sort of back and forth. So we're trying to be thoughtful, and we realized they do work with other organizations, and that's where we directed them to do this as opposed to having a kiosk. That was sort of how it ended. And I want to again commend Katie for trying to tread a fine line on this one. We just have to note that we said don't do it at that location.
So I do just want to emphasize the fact that two members of the committee heard differently in the conclusion of this letter. And admittedly, I have real grave concerns of voting for this letter because, you know, we thread fine lines regularly on almost every issue we address. And what I see here is no, not here, with no other suggestion of where it might go specifically. In every instance that we take up a topic, whether it be transportation or housing or education or anything, it doesn't work here, and here's why. But here's why it would actually work in this location. And that's all missing here. In the sentence, Joe, if you'll allow me to finish, the sentence expressly says, there is no interest at this time for the installation of a new sharps disposal kiosk, but it is helpful to know the resources exist.
So let me try to rephrase the thought of the letter.
A fine line threaded?
I want to rephrase the thought of this letter. There was no support for a sharps disposal kiosk, and instead work with other organizations that they mentioned they work with, BIDS, the Litter Legion, as a different means and methods to do sharps disposal. That was exactly where we landed as a committee. And I would recommend everyone who questions if this letter represents the committee to go to the YouTube video, because that's exactly what's in there. And if we're having a colloquy here because individuals did not feel comfortable with landing on that, even though they voted for it, that's always going to be our problem as a board. But here we are today. This is reflective of the actions that happened in that committee. And it is not about don't do this here. There was a real deep question, is this the means and methods whatsoever? And the answer was, try different means and methods. And furthermore, given the drug activity and the illegal activity at this location, am I going to report to you that Housing Works stated they would put it here because there's no residential use at all in this location, which was kind of offensive? No, but I'm going to say it because you pushed me to this point. We're trying to say good social service organization, not the best idea. However, work with these other groups that know something that is better, as opposed to proposing something that could not be installed legally by city regulation anyway. That's really what we got into. We had a very good, robust discussion about it. I want to commend all the members of the committee. They really got into it. We really did.
And
Yeah, I think I'm struggling here too because, and I'm not on the committee, so I don't know what the discussion was like. But the tone of this letter does sound like we don't want kiosks. And what I think Jeffrey's trying to say is that what you just described does not sound like
the letter.
this letter is saying, right? I think that there is a desire to work with other agencies, find other locations. The tone of this letter is just saying no kiosk, period.
I'm going to make a
agree
motion
with what
to
you're
refer
saying.
it back to committee.
I
want to
agree
make a
with what
motion
you're
to refer
saying.
it back to committee so the committee can reconsider this and have a printed letter that it votes on. And
I'll
everyone,
second that.
okay, let's take it that way. There's no reason to spend any time on it because we're going to hash it out again.
Thank you. I was gonna say something that Dolores said at the meeting, committee meeting. It is 10:02, so I agree with what Joe is proposing, and Dolores agreed with.
When the
So
committee
noting that
takes
this
it, when
item-
the committee takes it back, it should be clear about not wanting kiosks versus not wanting to collect sharps altogether.
Everyone is welcome to come to the committee meeting and participate, whether you're
that
on
isn't
committee or not.
decided. Technical question, how do we vote then?
There's
Table.
an option for referred back to committee.
Thank you.
Send back to committee, right?
Yeah, we don't want to table it because we want to make sure we can take it up
Right,
again.
comes back again. Right.
Yep. Thank you for recommending that, Dolores and Joe. I appreciate it. Housing's going to be busy this month. Final item on the agenda. Sorry. Housing has one more. I apologize. You guys have item 20 as well. Sorry, Joe.
So this is the result of 3 months of work by the Housing Committee. We have gone back and forth. Our community board has had a inclusionary housing policy since September of 2008. However, we did not have a clear checklist. In the last couple of applications, there's been a lack of clarity on presentation by the developers about this. So we decided to sit down and develop a very specific checklist. Tell us what's in the project, what's not, the rents, the income bands, the amenities. And the biggest change we made in the policy is noting that all finishes must be exactly the same, apartment finishes, meaning floors, ceilings, tile, cabinets throughout the market rate and the affordable apartments, and that the amenities should all be without charge, except for things that are health club, pool, very specific things that you would have to pay for if you were outside of the building. And any open space in the building should be unrestricted and free. We got very frustrated with a few developers where the outdoor space was entered through a floor fee lounge, and therefore the market rate tenants are segregated from the affordable tenants. So we really batted this around, and I want to say again, I mean this dead sincerely, all the committee members added in, we made changes, and this is a document that is very full, and really wanted to hear from any other, and we also incorporated things that our other committees ask, like garbage storage and trees and things like that. So instead of having that happen later, it happens early on. Thank you all very much. I'm ready for the questions on this one. I have the document in front of me to mark it up.
Thanks, Joe. Christine?
So yes, Joe, this is and the committee. I mean, it's an amazing piece of work. This is tremendous. I had a first question, which was: is the first part of the description going to be given to the developers, part of
Yes.
the document?
Yes.
Okay, so if so, there is a lot of history, which is maybe a little overly overwhelming. So just I would suggest to try to simplify it. But
It's actually the Christine, that actually is the policy from 2008.
Yeah, but
very little of that has changed.
I'm just saying the history is a little complicated. And then the second thing is that, and it's not for this letter, but for the future, I think we should have all a collective discussion about 165%. That makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't think we need a discussion right now, but I think that we should review the policy, and I would appreciate that and see whether 165% still makes sense.
Good.
Thanks, Christine. Twee?
Thank you. I just had some formatting issues with 3 pages that I wanted to make sure don't get presented to the parties. So on page 7, line 224, where you have the 2021 AMI tiers, you have lines 223 and 225 and 226, it seems, sort of overlapping the 30% AMI family of 4 there, and it makes it hard to read.
It didn't print that. It didn't print that way for me. Maybe it's a printing problem. I'll have Jesse look at it.
Yeah, it was in the Dropbox. Same thing with page 8, because the line numbers 230, 31, 32, 33, 34 shows proposed number of affordable units, which looks very jarring. That there are hundreds of units like that. I don't think that's the case, unfortunately. And the last one was on page 12, just a stray line item like that. And hopefully it does get resolved before it gets sent out.
Yeah, I think it's actually printing because I have a cleaner copy in front of me, Tweet.
Okay.
Thanks, Twee. Marty?
Thank you. I have a question about, I don't want to spend too much time repeating what Christine said about praise for this letter. The development of this policy over time, which we've all been watching, is fabulous, and I want to thank you for all the work. So my question is about lines 140 through 144. What does it mean when you say do not use construction or permit financing with inclusionary housing, which would require household incomes to be below 50%? Why is that there?
I'm sorry. Give me the specific thing.
I'm at 142.
Right.
Why is the exclusion of incomes under 50% AMI?
No, these are our policy guidelines. They actually do units for under 50% of AMI. The issue there, Marty, is developers use low-income housing tax credit financing with the New York State bonds, and you get only units at below 50%. That's the issue.
I'm not understanding, because I'm reading it as though the board is saying that it's not supporting housing under 50%. And so if there's some nuance there, it needs to be explained.
Right. So again, when you layer the two pieces of financing one on top of the other, you force all the low-income units only to 50%. And the development community knows this. We're asking them to use a broader range of financing, so there's a broader range of affordability.
Well, that sounds nice, but that isn't what that line says. That line says that we are not in favor of housing for under 50%. And if there's a qualification you can put there to get people like me to come along with it, that would be great.
I think you should, first of all, this is our policy since 2008. So you've been coming along with it for a while. Look at the first bullet in line 123.
But Joe, I think a little clarification. I looked at that line and I've been all along. I think you need to reword that line to make it more in alignment with what you said for the layman.
Maybe this was targeted too much toward the developer.
Yes.
Try to make it just plain language. Got it.
And I think because it's our policy, Joe, it does make sense to sort of a bit more clarification.
Yeah,
I get it. Gotcha. Now I understand.
For me, we have been, you, Joe, have been supporting the loudest voice that I can think of, the middle incomes of housing, the middle ranges of AMI. I have been, as you probably know, because we've had this discussion before, I've been uncomfortable with that, not because our community also has a lot of people who need the lower income housing. And that struggle between you and me should continue. But I don't think either you or I want to come off as sounding like we are excluding below 50% housing.
Yeah. No, I think it's a technicality and the way it's.
Thank you, Marty.
It's got to be expressed a little bit clearer, because I'm coming at it very much from how that financing works. So I got you, Marty. I got you. I understand.
Thanks, Marty. Twee, did you have another question?
Yeah, I wanted to suggest, thank you. I wanted to suggest language in response. So instead of saying do not use, can we say something like, this is an addition to? just to make it clearer, to show that we're trying not to exclude?
Maybe we should say that we prefer construction financing that creates a broader range and not only. So it sort of makes it clear. So something like that. Does that make sense? In general idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sounds better.
Okay.
The developers will already know that really the clarification is more for the broader public.
Yes.
Right. Got it.
Great.
And ourselves, we're educating ourselves too when we read these letters. So
Yes.
it's not just the broader public, it's us.
Jesse?
I just want to echo a little bit of what Christine and folks have said. I just want to let people know how, and this is a real compliment to the committee, that how hungry community boards are for something like this. You know, I think the housing committee knows this, but the rest of the board, these applications are dropped at our doorstep. We're given 45 days to review really complicated plans. This committee and this board does a really good job of getting real wins, getting permanent affordable housing when we were offered non-permanent affordable housing. We're expanding the AMIs and the closing the donut holes and things like that, getting amenities. I mentioned this, that we're working on this, that this committee is working on this at the Borough Service Cabinet, which is where all of the district managers meet every month under the Borough President's Office. And everybody's hungry for something like this. So they're really, I just want to say congratulations to the committee and congratulations to this board for leading the way on stuff like this. And I'm telling you, other boards are just hungry for getting this and using it and trying to use it for their own sake. And the next one you guys are working on for the social service one, I'm sure will be the same thing.
Hear, hear, for sure. Thanks for that, Jesse. Tina, final question.
Actually, it's a comment. Just again, congratulations. Such an impressive document, and just thank you so much for all that work.
Well, then fine, I won't say the same thing. Yeah, it's great work. I think it speaks to what we were talking about before when we were referencing some legends in the community of the caliber of work our board and committees do. So hear, hear to this work. Any final questions on item 20? Thank you, Maria and Joe. Final item on the new business front tonight, item 21, is a letter to DEP about a rule change that's taking effect. I'm gonna go to Jesse first, and then I wanna pass it to Christine. Jesse?
Yeah, I just want to apologize if there's any confusion on this one. You know, it was a new business item, not originally sent out with Friday's letters. We didn't send it out as a notice with our normal blast out, so it's been listed there. The letter's in your packet, so it's there. It's on your vote sheet. But I realized that the agendas that were sent around just to the board members did not have the updated agenda. So some of you might have read an older agenda and seen it, but I just want to apologize for that. So technically, the agenda that was voted on earlier today is, if you're using that agenda to make your vote, that's unfortunately it's needed to be amended with this vote with this additional letter.
So this came about, we discovered there was a rule change that was going to be happening. Christine and I chatted, we chatted with the water WPE. This is an environmental issue overall, and we thought it was really important I felt it was important to really make our position known, because we really need to get our electeds aware of this. Christine, do you want to provide a bit more on the detail?
Very quickly, we don't have a lot of detail, but the DEP is proposing a rule change to define what is an exception to the idling rules. And the way they want to define the exception is so wide that there will be plenty of opportunity to any trucks or buses or whatever to claim that they are entitled to an exception. And therefore, we are objecting to that. And we are preparing for a hearing on March 2nd, so that, and we want to, mention that to all the elected so they know when they send letters so that we do not eviscerate the idling laws.
Any questions on this letter? Thank you, Christine.
Ready to go.
Well,
done.
At this time, I turn it over to Blake and Katie to call the roll. Oh, Paul, final comment?
No, Jeffrey, something that you and Christine and I have been working on the NEPA letter to Penn Station, is that supposed to come up under?
That's going to be admin.
Admin, okay, thank you.
Sure, Frank?
Yeah, just before we vote, I think Jesse or I should explain what the votes mean on items 1 and 2, because they're sort of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Want me to do it, Jesse?
I'm all for you doing it, Frank.
Okay. So item
those are our
1,
first
which
item.
is the Manhattan Plaza liquor license at 410 West 43rd Street. The committee recommendation is a denial of the letter. So if you believe the license should be denied, you vote yes. So in that case, yes equals a denial. If you want the people to get the license, you vote no on 1. On number 2, the committee recommendation is to approve the license. So if you want the people to get the license, you vote yes. And if you don't want them to get the license, you vote no.
Approve with stipulations.
Approved with stipulations. Yeah, the earlier closing hours and so forth.
Thank you for that, Frank. Passing it over to Katie and Blake to call the roll and have everybody fill out their vote sheets.
All right, I'm gonna start again with alphabetical order, last name. So first is Sarah Appleton.
She's not here anymore.
Right, I think tonight she was coming to say bye, so she's not here.
Ted Arenas.
Yes to all, and 19 is tabled.
No, to committee.
19 was the, right. Roberta Barnett.
Yes, to all except those that were tabled.
Christine Berthe.
Yes, except table.
Right. Just clarity's sake, just hold on 1 second. One thing is tabled and the other one's going back to committee, just so we're all.
Oh, which one is tabled?
So the ACE's letter is tabled.
Oh, okay.
And then housing's letter about the syringe kiosk is going back to committee.
So, all right, so you want us to say that for everyone? No.
No,
It's okay if you don't say
clarity's
it.
sake, you only vote on what we're voting on. We already are sending one back to the committee and one is already tabled. They don't need to be mentioned.
Got it.
Well, I just want to make sure. So, but it does matter how you vote on your sheet. So
yes,
please, you don't have to use the exact wording right now, appropriate wording in your verbal vote, but in terms of voting on your sheet, in terms of numbers, I need you have to be voting appropriately.
Okay.
Excuse me, Jesse.
Sorry, but yeah, Jesse on number.
Hold on.
Raise your hand if you have a question.
Raise the hand function, please. Alan and then Jessica. Alan?
Number 11, it says sent back to committee, not table.
So that's the ACE's letter, correct?
Right, so you want to change that to table?
No, just that's the only option on your vote sheet. So
okay,
please tick that option.
Cool.
Sure.
Thanks, Alan.
There's no option.
There's an option for there underneath of it.
Yeah, no,
Ignore,
I'm sorry.
so ignore the other on that.
What is going on here?
So which?
Sorry. So sorry. All right. If they're both going back to committee, my apologies. Then you just vote when on the sheet. You're voting going back to committee for both. I apologize. I thought the other one was
So
tabled.
items. So just so items 11 and 19. The vote is to send them back to committee.
There you go.
And you do not have to announce that in your roll call. All you're announcing are your yes, no, or P&E on all other items.
But on 11, we press other and then write in sent back
Nope.
to committee?
No.
No,
Okay,
hold on.
thank you.
Oh, folks, if you could go on mute and I will give the directions, we'll get this done in no time. On items 11 and 19, the only thing to tick is sent back to committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sabrina? Oh, that hand disappeared.
I'm actually present and eligible for 19. So do I
sent to committee, even though I cannot vote on that?
Okay, that's a great question, but you still send it back to committee because you're not taking a position on it.
It doesn't matter. Okay, cool.
Look at the nuance that we can handle at 10:21.
Look at that. Thank you.
Okay, so Blake, I'm passing it back to you.
Yep, we're up to Gwen Billig. Not here. Leslie Bogosi and Murphy.
No on two, yes to the rest.
Viren.
Yes to all.
Jessica Chait.
Yes to all.
Dale.
Yes to all other items.
Marty.
Yes to all, and I submitted the form.
Thank you. Paul Devlin.
Yes to all and submitted.
Pete Diaz.
Yes to all and submitted.
Tina.
Yes to all and submitted.
Thank you. Wendy.
Yes to all and submitted.
Jesse. Jesse Greenwald. Candice.
Yes to all and submitting.
David Holokwa.
Yes to all except 2 and 13 and submitted.
Frank.
Yes to all.
Josephine.
Yes to all.
Peggy.
Yes to all.
Harry.
Yes to all.
Lowell. I'm voting yes to all. Bert.
Yes to all.
Chris. Betty McIntosh.
Yes to all.
Sarah Mills.
Yes to all.
Tina Nelson.
Yes to all.
Mike Noble.
Abstain on 1, yes to the rest.
I'm sorry, abstain on 1? Okay. JD.
No to number 2, yes to all.
Maria.
Yes to all and submitted. Thanks.
Alan.
No on two, yes to the rest.
Brad.
Abstain on 17, yes to the rest. Thank you.
Twee.
Yes to all. Happy Lunar New Year. Submitting.
Thank you. Joe Restusha.
Yes to all.
Sabrina.
Yes to all.
Dolores.
Yes to all.
David Solnick. Katie Stokes.
Katie was
Yes
here.
to all. Sorry about that. I am here. Yes to all.
Thank you. Kit. Hector.
Yes to all.
Renal.
Yes to all.
Rob Walker.
Yes to all and submitted.
James Wallace. David Warren.
Yay to all and submitted.
Thank you. Leslie Williams.
Yes to all.
And Alice Wong.
No to number 2, yes to the rest, and submitted.
Thank you. And anyone other than Jeffrey that I missed or didn't vote the first time? So Jeffrey.
Thanks, Blake. I am present, not eligible on item 14, and yes to the rest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion
Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.